Chapter 992. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Gongshu, Jian's counterattack. I've already sent a message to Wan Dao. If he meets Cripple in the top 10 competition, he will be defeated and buried with 100 heads. Mansion Master Chui said coldly. The third elder's sorrowful mood was comforted. He then pointed at Qin Hao and said seriously, that meddlesome blind man will also die a horrible death. The competition continued. In the next round, Gongshu Jian faced a martialist from the Southern Division. Gongshu Jian relied on his mecha and was comparable to an 8th-level Yuan Monarch. His luck was not bad. Other than being injured in the fight with the ironback demonic lizard, the other opponents he met were of average cultivation and did not pose much of an obstacle. In the first round, his opponent's strength was comparable to Gongshu Jian's. In the end, Gongshu Jian won by luck. If he fought another round, he would be qualified to challenge the top 10 of the Imperial Martial Roll, just like Iron Crutch Lee. Unfortunately, he met a strong opponent in the last round. Gongshu Jian's opponent was a pseudo-venerable. The battle was completely one-sided. In just 10 moves, the 4-meter-tall mecha was filled with countless holes under the bombardment of the opponent's vital energy. It was an imminent danger, on the verge of disintegration. The mecha's leg, joints, and shoulders had been forcefully penetrated by the pseudo-venerable, causing mechanical parts to fall off. The core of the mecha was severely damaged. It could not even move, let alone fight. This is the last move. I will make you and your ugly scrap metal skin roll out of the arena together, the pseudo-venerable said arrogantly. After speaking, he clasped his palms in front of his chest. The faint purple flames between his palms became stronger and stronger. Is this the end? Gongshu Jian, who was hiding in the mecha, was covered in bruises and blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. Even though he had improved the mecha's functions time and time again based on the precious experience left by his predecessors, he still could not keep up with the pace of the times. It seemed that machines could not be compared to the talents of martialists. No, it is not that the mecha is too weak. It is just that my cultivation is too low. If I used stronger materials to reconstruct the mecha and had a Yuan Monarch pilot it personally, I would not have to worry about not being able to defeat this pseudo-venerable. Gongshu Jian knew that it was his own condition and poor financial ability that limited the future of the mecha. The physique of a martial artist was much stronger than that of an ordinary person. If it was a Yuan King martial artist piloting a mecha, they would be immune to the interference caused by machinery to a large extent. Gongshu Jian thought it through in his heart, but he was powerless to change it. Even if I lose, I will lose with dignity. Before the fireworks disappear, let me leave a splendid light. Super concentrated baryon crystal cannon. Gongshu Jian let out a thunderous roar and extended his 2 fists forward, aiming at the pseudo-venerable who was accumulating power. Following this, the 2 iron fists of the giant mecha he was piloting actually broke off from its wrists and fell off. Then, a black cannon barrel appeared on each of his arms. Inside the 2 ghastly cannon barrels, a blazing white laser beam gathered and grew stronger. Gongshu Jian used all the mysterious crystals stored inside the mecha to burn, betting on a pair of hand cannons. Because the mecha was badly damaged at the moment, the black crystal's energy was too great. Crackling lightning wrapped around the mecha. Gongshu Jian had completely ignored one point. The speed at which the damaged mecha absorbed the energy from the mysterious crystals was far slower than the circulation of the warrior's primordial chi. Before he could finish accumulating power, the pseudo-venerable opposite him had already attacked with his ultimate move. Disappear, Tin Man, the pseudo-venerable roared and pushed his palms forward with all his might. A turbulent, light, purple beam surged out from his palms like a flood from an open dam. With a loud explosion, it shook the mecha that could not accumulate power in time. The damaged mecha could no longer withstand it and turned into fragments with a crash. Its parts scattered on the ground, looking extremely miserable. Gongshu Jian was also hit by this attack and flew out of the mecha. A large hole opened in his chest, and he fell to the ground. Mechas that can't keep up with the times should have been kicked out of the Imperial Martial competition long ago. How can a cold machine compare to the enthusiasm of a warrior? There are actually people who imitate ancient mechas. How foolish. Many contestants sneered in disdain. The pseudo-venerable on the arena proudly raised his nose. I lost. Looking at the broken metals scattered all over the ground, Gongshu Jian let out a heartbroken sob. He hated his own incompetence for not being able to fulfill the dreams of his family seniors. He used his fist to desperately smash the ground. At this moment, he suddenly felt his arm become extremely heavy. He looked up and found that one of the mecha's hand cannons was still tied to his right arm. Currently, this hand cannon was in perfect condition. Gongshu Jian, you didn't eat the elixir I left for you, right? You shouldn't have ended like this. Qin Hao shouted helplessly from afar. Gongshu Jian was stunned. He really didn't eat the elixir left by Qin Hao. He was untalented and could not gather qi even after cultivating for his entire life. He had given up on martial arts. Therefore, to him, eating any elixir in the world was a waste. Could it be that the elixir can change my fate? A ridiculous idea appeared in Gongshu Jian's mind. Even he found it ridiculous. Hey, trash, your mecha can't withstand a single blow. Are you still not going to scram? At this moment, the pseudo-venerable's disdainful mockery came from the opposite side. If you still don't scram, I'll send you to the King of Hell's palace to drink tea with the King of Hell. As he spoke, the pseudo-venerable rubbed his fists and walked over with a sinister smile. Gongshu Jian glanced at the broken mecha parts on the ground, and then looked at the hand cannon tied to his right arm. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and took out the Saint Soul elixir that Qin Hao had given him and swallowed it. Suddenly, a huge force was born in his sea of qi. Gongshu Jian felt his entire body become hot and dry. It was as if there was a living beast in his body that drove all the martial meridians in his body to operate rapidly. The realm that he couldn't break through was rising again and again. It was as if he was sitting on a rocket, continuously rising miraculously in front of millions of people. Yuan Gathering Realm. Yuan Master. Yuan Zone. Yuan Zone 9th level. Tongue. Orange flames circled around Gongshu Jian's body. At this moment, Gongshu Jian felt that he could move a mountain and break a river with one step. Is this the power of divine transcendence? Gongshu Jian felt that he had never felt so strong before. He looked at his arm in shock. His arm was thicker and his muscles were firmer. Even the injuries on his body had healed without treatment. What was even more unbearable was that he felt as if there was a volcano in his body that was rapidly erupting. What's going on? The pseudo-venerable who walked over was stunned by the scene in front of him. Super condensed, heavy, crystal cannon. At this moment, Gongshu Jian suddenly roared. He raised the hand cannon on his right arm and aimed it at the face of the dumbfounded pseudo-venerable. Rumble. Using a martial artist Yuan Qi as the energy, a blazing white light beam shot out like a laser and pierced through the chest of the pseudo-venerable. The tyrannical impact sent the pseudo-venerable flying for more than 1,000 meters. He fell into the crowd of spectators and smashed into countless people. How is this possible? It's fake, right? In the royal tower, many patriarchs, sect masters, and sect masters stood up one after another. Their expressions were extremely shocked. Chapter 993. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Leap appeared. The leap was too great, breaking through the limits of a martialist's leapfrog challenge and even destroying the balance. However, when a martialist stepped into the Yuan Venerate, their conditions would undergo a qualitative leap. It was just like how ordinary martialists could transcend mortality and gain the ability to fly. After entering the Venerate level, a martialist could control the power of space within a certain range and shuttle back and forth freely. Mechas couldn't compare at all in this aspect. Not to mention the late-stage Yuan Sovereign and Emperor Yuan, who could be called gods that dominated a part of the world. The inadequacy of mechas would become more and more obvious in front of the Yuan Sovereign and Emperor Yuan. In the end, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. On the surface, this blow is very shocking, but I don't believe that Gongshu Jian wasn't affected, Duan Zhanfei said. Gongshu Jian had crossed such a large distance and sent a secondary venerate flying. He must have paid a huge price. Sure enough, almost as soon as the secondary venerate was sent flying, the mechanical hand cannon on Gongshu Jian's arm turned into powder and scattered on the ground. Apart from that, a dizzy feeling blasted into his mind. Before Gongsun Changxing could announce the result of the match, Gongshu Jian fainted on the ground. That blow just now had drained all his energy and also completely destroyed his mecha. He believed that even if his mecha hadn't been destroyed by his opponent in advance, it would have completely collapsed due to the heavy load during the process of him releasing his ultimate move. This result would undoubtedly be a lose-lose situation. After losing his mecha, Gongshu Jian would also lose the capital to continue fighting in the top 10. Damn it! The secondary venerate jumped up frantically after crashing into the crowd. Although there was a thumb-sized bloody hole in his chest, he wasn't affected much. He had been careless and accidentally sent flying, thus disqualifying himself from the competition. At this moment, his face was filled with a strong sense of shame. He took 2 deep breaths, suppressed the anger in his heart, smiled calmly, and gave Gongshu Jian a thumbs up. The secondary venerate turned and walked out of the arena. It was already a miracle that Gongshu Jian, who was only a mortal sage, could send him flying. After thousands of years, it's rare to see a product of the machine race again. Furthermore, the person controlling it is amazing. With a wave of his hand, Xiao he ordered people to carry Gongshu Jian away. Then, he looked at Qin Hao with interest. It was unknown what Qin Hao had shouted, but Gongshu Jian had suddenly taken out an item and swallowed it, causing his cultivation to soar. The mecha did not pique Xiao Yi's interest. Instead, Xiao Yi was very curious about what Gongshu Jian had eaten. Xiao Yi wasn't the only one who was curious. Almost all the patriarchs, and leaders of the aristocratic families in the royal tower ordered their people to secretly inquire about what Gongshu Jian had eaten. The things he ate could be called rare treasures. At the same time, Jiang Fan, Ling Xiaoxue, Mu Feiyu, and the others all stood up in shock. Others might not recognize it, but they were very familiar with the Saint's Soul Pill. They had all eaten it. Gongshu Jian's state and aura when he ascended to the mortal saint realm was exactly the same as when Qin Hao had helped him ascend. Someone come quickly. Find out what that person ate. Do whatever it takes. We must get out. Jiang Fan's eyes were wet, and his expression was quite unnatural. He shouted and ordered the servants of the Jiang mansion to find Gongshu Jian. If it was confirmed that he had eaten the Saint's Soul Pill, it meant that his master was still alive. Only Qin Hao had the Saint's Soul Pill. Ling Xiaoxue rushed down the royal tower to find the imperial guards who had carried Gongshu Jian away. She had to help the Ling Yun school find the missing patriarch. But in the next second, there was no need, because Qin Hao had taken the initiative to appear. As soon as Qin Hao appeared, his temperament firmly attracted Ling Xiaoxue to the spot. Su Hao from the Northern Division, Jiang Fengyu from the Western Division. The ceremonial officer's summons came from the martial arena. When Qin Hao heard his name, he stepped forward with a smile. "Brother, you can do it." Xiaogua clenched his fists and cheered him on. Yi Shuihan quickly took out the purple gold token and channeled a wisp of primordial qi into it. He flipped through the list of the Imperial Martial Ranking list and checked the ranking of Qin Hao's opponent, Jiang Fengyu. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't checked, but after checking, Yi Shuihan was shocked. With a burst of brilliance from the purple gold token, the list of the contestants on the Imperial Martial Ranking list slowly appeared. The list of the top 10 contestants still couldn't be seen. But for those below the top 10, the first thing he saw was the name Jiang Fengyu. Jiang Fengyu's position was very close to the front, below Duan Ziju and Song Xiang. Duan Ziju, 11th. Song Zhang, 12th. Jiang Fengyu, 13th. Below Jiang Fengyu was the person who had killed Bai Shou in the same year. His ranking was even higher than Bai Shou. Suddenly, Yi Shuihan's expression became extremely ugly. What's wrong? Let me see Jiang Fengyo's ranking. Xiaowa leaned his head over. Let me see too. Me too. Yi Wuhan, Xiao Jiao, Qin Yun, Chen Wanqin, and Xing all surrounded Yi Shuihan. After a glance, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Qin Hao, Jiang Fengyo's cultivation is above Bai Shou. Even if I were to fight against Song Xiang, I would still need to be extra careful. Be careful. When Qin Hao went up the stage, a reminder came from behind him. Qin Hao stopped in his tracks. He could tell that the person who reminded him was Duan Ziju. When did Duan become so good? Had he turned over a new leaf? Qin Hao smiled slightly and didn't respond. He took another step forward. I told you to be careful. Did you hear me? Duan Ziju immediately became anxious. Oh, isn't it just slightly more powerful than Bai Shou? I got it. Qin Hao faintly transmitted his voice. Qin Hao was a little surprised that Duan Ziju could remind him. As for Jiang Fengyu, sorry, I don't put him in my eyes. One arrogant guy. Be careful not to fail miserably. Duan Ziju scolded angrily. What did you secretly say to Su Hao? Song Xiang asked. What does it have to do with you? You should pay more attention to Ling Xiaoxue. She ran down from the Imperial Tower and is staring at Su Hao. Bah, she's staring at Qin Hao. Duan Ziju angrily sat back on the chair in the spectator stand. If Qin Hao was defeated, he would be defeated by him. Before meeting him, Duan Ziju would never allow Qin Hao to be defeated. Qin Hao, so this is his real name. Song Xiang let out a long oh. Then his mind shook as if he had thought of something. Song Xiang suddenly shouted, What? Qin Hao. If it weren't for the fact that he used his hand to cover his mouth, Song Xiang would have shouted out. Qin Hao. It was the person from Shiliang that Princess Jingyue missed day and night. Hee. When they noticed the change in Song Xiang's face, Xiaowa, Yi Shuihan, and the others all looked over with bad intentions. I don't know anything. Song Xiang spread out his hands, shrugged his shoulders, and sat beside Duan Ziju. Immediately, his face was filled with anticipation, looking forward to the huge news that was about to explode. I haven't seen you for a year, Xiaoxue. You've lost weight. Before Qin Hao went on stage, he passed by Ling Xiaoxue and said indifferently, Boom! Ling Xiaoxue was watching in a daze. When she heard this sentence, her mind seemed to be about to explode. She couldn't help but cover her mouth with her small hand. Chapter 994. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, where did Master go? A Monarch-level martialist and a blind one? Aren't you looking down on me? As Qin Hao ascended the stage, Jiang Fengyu placed his hands behind his back and sized up Qin Hao with a disdainful expression. Someone from a Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Qin Hao muttered softly as he deduced Jiang Fengyo's background based on his name. Since you are from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, I don't need to show mercy. Qin Hao added. Jiang Fengyu couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. How arrogant. I really wonder how you managed to defeat Zhou Wuning and climb to the 25th position on the Emperor Martial list. How did I manage to defeat you? Why don't you give it a try? Qin Hao reached out and beckoned Jiang Fengyu with his finger. He had a grudge with the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Even Fong Tangjing, who was hiding in the crowd, hadn't recognized Qin Hao yet. However, it was only a matter of time before he recognized him. You overestimate yourself. Jiang Fengyu was a little angry. His big brother, Jiang Zizai, was ranked 8th on the Emperor Martial list. Although his ranking was slightly lower than his big brother's, he was still a martial artist. He was inferior in terms of martial arts. Besides his father, Pavilion Master Jiang Fengyu didn't even care about the great elder of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, which was famous for its alchemy skills. Even Jiang Zizai couldn't compare to his alchemy skills. How could he tolerate Qin Hao's provocation? Jiang Fengyu threw a palm strike at Qin Hao angrily. Since I used 80% of my strength to kill a second-level Yuan Venerate with a source spirit, I will use 10% of my strength to make you, a trash Yuan Monarch, disappear, Jiang Fengyu said arrogantly. The purple Venerate aura emitted by his palm strike was like a flaming blade. It was very frightening. Ha! Qin Hao's palm strike dissipated the incoming Yuan Venerate aura. What? You actually caught it. Jiang Fengyu was very surprised. Although he had only used 10% of his strength, Qin Hao was still a mere minor Yuan Venerate. I'm sorry, but it's actually very difficult for me to not be able to withstand your attacks. Qin Hao replied. You're just a piece of trash. Qin Hao replied. Ha 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 ha. The arena immediately burst into laughter. The laughter was like a wave. Even Xiao couldn't help but laugh. Qin Hao. No matter what, Jiang Fengyu was still the second young master of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. His cultivation base was even higher than the 100-headed killer. Yet, Qin Hao had actually described him as a weakling. This was like a slap to the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's face. This blind man is really bold. Where did he come from? He probably doesn't know how powerful Jiang Fengyu is. No matter where he came from, he's going to die a horrible death. Everyone who knew Jiang's no Jiang no Jiang Yunlong. Nai, Jiang's Nai, in Jiang translations. This is. In particular, his source spirit was very special. It could refine a living person into an elixir pill. Anyone who had offended Jiang Fengyu in the past had been turned into an elixir. Logically speaking, he was an evil cultivator. Due to the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's strength in the northern border, the martialists who disliked him didn't dare say anything. Very good. You're the first person to publicly anger me like this. In order to repay you, I will refine you into an elixir pill in this Grand Emperor Martial Arena. Of course, this is to improve the quality of the elixir pill. Before that, I will slowly torture you step by step. Your wails and screams will improve the quality of the elixir pill. Jiang Fengyu, who was so angry that his face turned ashen, spat out these malicious words. Oh, the quality of the elixir pill can be improved in this way? Qin Hao was surprised. As the #1 dandy of the continent, he actually didn't know about this. Qin Hao didn't have time to think. Jiang Fengyu's attacks were like a violent storm. With a cruel smile on his face, Jiang Fengyu suddenly opened his 5 fingers and 10 wisps of purple smoke came out from his palm. These 10 wisps of smoke looked very strange. Like poisonous snakes coming out of their caves, they flew toward Qin Hao in a line. Not only were their speed frightening, but they were also endless. Waterwind steps, along with countless screams coming from all directions. Qin Hao himself was not nervous at all. His feet moved in a mysterious way, as calm as water and as swift as the wind. Even though the 10 streams of poisonous snake smoke were chasing after him, he was still able to easily slip through the gaps of the smoke with his tricky body movements, without any effort at all. That is crack. Jiang Fan, who was watching the battle from the Imperial Tower, was shocked. Then his body trembled. In the entire northern border, only his master and he knew this set of footwork. Plop! Jiang Fan's knees fell heavily to the ground. His throat was choked with sobs, and he was so excited that he couldn't say a word. Tears flowed down his face. The others felt that it was quite strange, but it was not their place to interrupt the young master of the Jiang family, so they continued to watch the battle. The blind man on the stage was really good at martial arts. He was able to move freely under Jiang Fengyu's attacks. It's him. It's him. He's back. Old Master Jiang grabbed the dragon head crutch in his hand. He was even more excited than Jiang Fan. On the stage, Jiang Fengyu looked at Qin Hao, who was using the water wind steps, with a surprised expression. He had activated 10 wisps of Cauldron Soul Force. Even if he killed 100 heads, he wouldn't be able to do it as easily as Qin Hao. A blind man had such an exquisite skill. What an extraordinary footwork. Jiang Fengyu couldn't help but take a few more glances. He was not in a hurry to attack. At this time, Tian Daluo, the Grand Elder of the Zhanyuan Mansion, felt his heart skip a beat. He felt that he had seen Qin Hao's footwork somewhere before. What's wrong, Daluo? Daluo? Master Tian Daluo's expression did not look normal. I'm fine. Tian Daluo replied casually. He stared at Qin Hao's face without blinking. The more he looked, the more he felt like a person. He clenched his fists tighter and tighter. The old injury on his knee hurt again, but he couldn't guarantee it. Very good footwork. But that's all. Gather and kill. Jiang Fengyu took a few more glances at Qin Hao's waterwind steps and thought that he had figured out the trick. He aimed his 2 fists at the void and clenched them. The 10 wisps of purple energy quickly gathered into a ball like a hemp rope. At this time, Qin Hao was caught in the gap between the smoke and was quickly wrapped up. Ha ha ha, Jiang Fengyu laughed. No matter how wonderful your footwork is, it's just a clown's performance in front of absolute strength. After that, Jiang Fengyu clenched his fist. Explode. Bang! The purple smoke that had gathered into a ball exploded on the spot. When the smoke dissipated, Qin Hao was nowhere to be seen. It's over. Jiang Fengyu heaved a long sigh. He looked somewhat disappointed. He thought that Qin Hao should have at least struggled for a while. At the very least, he should have left a wisp of his soul for him to refine into a pill. It's a pity that my strength is too awesome. I can destroy the blind man's soul with one strike. Next time when I fight with someone, I have to be more careful. Hey, Director Gong's son, why haven't you announced my victory? Jiang Fengyu sighed for a while. Suddenly, he turned his head and urged Gong's son Changxing, who was on the Imperial Tower. However, Gong's son Changxing looked back at him as if he was looking an idiot. At this time, bang, there was a muffled sound. The shadow of a leg flashed and hit Jiang Fengyu's mouth like a steel whip. Jiang Fengyu opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew out diagonally and somersaulted a few times before he could stand firmly. His hair was messy, and he looked extremely embarrassed. In front of absolute speed, sometimes strength is useless. Swoosh. Chapter 995. Translator. Hinyi Translations Editor. Hinyi Translations condensing the elixir empty-handed. How can this be? He's so fast. Unbelievable. All around the arena, the spectators were shocked. Even the contestants' eyes were wide open. The moment the 10 waves of soul energy exploded, they broke free and quickly attacked Jiang Fengyu's back. Jiang Fengyu didn't notice it at all. This kid is really extraordinary. Xiao Yi's body leaned forward slightly, his eyes filled with joy. He couldn't help but praise Qin Hao a few times. He could see that Qin Hao had used an extremely high-level movement technique. It was definitely a heaven-level movement technique. However, with Xiao Yi's observation skills, he was unable to determine which grade of the heaven rank it had reached. This kid has an almighty guiding him. Xiao Yi nodded solemnly with a trace of doubt in his eyes. He had clearly seen through Qin Hao's realm. He was just a 6th-level Yuan Monarch. However, judging from the strength of Qin Hao's kick, Jiang Fengyu's strength was far from that. Xiao Yi felt that Qin Hao gave him an unfathomable feeling. At the same time, Duan Ziju and Song Xiang's expressions changed drastically. If they were to face Jiang Fengyu, they wouldn't be as relaxed as Qin Hao. However, Qin Hao had completely suppressed Jiang Fengyu. Could it be that the bloody battle in the depths of the Blue River Mountain was really caused by Qin Hao alone? Duan Ziju secretly clenched his fists. He didn't believe it in the past, but now his belief was shaken. You're not ordinary. Jiang Fengyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. There was no longer any contempt on his face. Only seriousness was left. He was ranked 13th on the Emperor Martial list. His aptitude was top-notch. After taking a kick, he had already determined that Qin Hao's physical strength was comparable to a supreme-level powerhouse. This meant that Qin Hao wasn't a simple young Yuan monarch, but someone with a powerful origin spirit. However, Jiang Fengyu couldn't guess what Qin Hao's powerful origin spirit was. Could it be a beast soul? An elephant or a rhinoceros? Jiang Fengyu frowned. Only primeval beasts, such as the primeval elephants and the primeval rhinoceroses, could produce such explosive power as Qin Hao did. Qin Hao just sneered at him, as if he was mocking Jiang Fengyu for being ignorant and inexperienced. Damn it, no matter what your origin spirit is. In the next second, I'll make you have nowhere. Jiang Fengyu roared. Jiang Fengyu roared. Jiang Fengyu moved his palms in a white smoke. In the smoke, something that looked like a huge tool could be vaguely seen. It was full of mystery. Is he finally going to use a fierce move? Duan Ziju narrowed his eyes slightly as he watched the changes in the arena. Jiang Fengyu, Jiang Fengyu, Jiang Fengyu. Was. After Jiang Fengyu summoned his mysterious source spirit, he stood up on one leg like a golden chicken standing on one leg. His arms waved as he kept waving them in Qin Hao's direction. His mouth kept muttering, "Show yourself." Bewitching butterfly soul fragrance. Hua, hua. As he waved his arms, strange butterflies formed from purple mist emerged from his arms. There were so many of them that they couldn't be counted. The swarm of butterflies crazily swarmed towards Qin Hao, leaving a strange soul fragrance as they flew past him. When the soul fragrance spread with the wind, some of the spectators close to the stage rolled their eyes and fell to the ground, falling into a deep sleep. Those who are enchanted by my son, Fengyou's soul fragrance, will not wake up for 3 to 5 years. Even if they wake up, they will forget many things. Martial artists with weak cultivation will directly become idiots. Jiang Fengyu introduced his son to everyone. When everyone heard this, their faces changed. The power of this soul fragrance was really terrifying. Under the baptism of my beautiful soul butterfly, if you don't use your origin spirit to resist, you will join the ranks of idiots. Jiang Fengyu said proudly with a smile on his face. In fact, his origin spirit was a pill cauldron. At this moment, the soul butterfly that rushed toward Qin Hao was the medicinal energy that Jiang Fengyu extracted from the soul cauldron. Because the medicinal energy was formed by the origin spirit, the concentration of the medicinal energy was 5 times higher than the pill cauldron of real alchemists. If one was hit by his move, unless their cultivation realm was much higher than Jiang Fengyou's. Otherwise, they couldn't break it by force. This was the terrifying part of Jiang Fengyu. It was also the reason why he didn't put the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's great elder in his eyes. He was worthy of being called an alchemy genius. His origin spirit was born for alchemy. I am the heavens. I am the earth. I am the great pill emperor of the next generation that is revered by the mainland. Haha. Jiang Fengyu laughed wildly without thinking. Unfortunately, the real Dindy was in front of him. Once this move is used, the outcome will be decided. Jiang Fengyu confidently pointed at the stage with a proud expression. The elders of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion nodded. In short, they believed that Qin Hao was finished. And a strange medicinal fragrance? When the black mass of purple soul butterfly flew over, there was no fear on Qin Hao's face. Instead, there was a surprising surprise. This surprise almost made Jiang Fengyu faint in the Imperial Tower. Then, Qin Hao stretched out his hand and stirred the incoming butterflies. His arm formed a strong airflow. Qin Hao stirred the airflow and stirred the butterflies into a whirlpool. The whirlpool became smaller and smaller. The medicinal energy that Jiang Fengyu extracted from the soul cauldron was constantly being compressed. Bang! A cluster of flames suddenly flashed on the stage. It was so sudden that it almost blinded people's eyes. It was actually Qin Hao condensing the soul fire on the spot and sending it into the whirlpool. He wanted to refine Jiang Fengyou's medicinal energy into a pill. Gather! Accompanied by Qin Hao's roar, his palm covered the whirlpool. Then he clenched his fist, and the whirlpool and flames disappeared at the same time. When he stretched out his hand again, there was a white gold pill emitting a strange fragrance in his palm. Chapter 996. The outcome was determined. He actually condensed the pill with his bare hands. The patriarchs, sect masters, and sect masters were all shocked. Damn, he refined Jiang Fengyou's essence soul into a pill. Duan Ziju couldn't help but exclaim. This was the first time he had lost his composure like this. As for Jiang Fengyu and his father, Pavilion Master Jiang, even the elders of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion were petrified. As alchemists, no one knew better than them how difficult it was to condense a pill with one's bare hands. Once the medicinal ingredient left the cauldron and ignited the fire, the medicinal effect would quickly dissipate. Therefore, those who wanted to condense a pill with their bare hands had to do it with a single thought. Whether it was the control of the flame, the injection of mental energy, or the kneading of the ingredients, they had to be precise. There was no room for error. The slightest mistake would result in failure. After so many years of refining pills, no one in the entire Medicine Emperor Pavilion could do this except for the Pavilion Master. Pavilion Master Jiang needed at least 5 to 8 breaths of time to complete all the steps. The quality of the pill didn't exceed high grade. However, today their horizons were broadened. Qin Hao used less than 3 breaths of time to condense the pill with his bare hands. The quality of the pill was top grade. Immediately, a row of cold sweat flowed down the foreheads of Pavilion Master Jiang and the elders of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, making them feel ashamed. As expected of His Excellency, he's the only one in the world who can do such a miraculous thing. In the leather seat area, Dan Ji's Pavilion Master, Xinque, nodded with admiration. As a royal-grade alchemist whose grade was higher than Pavilion Master Jiang's, even she couldn't condense the pill with her bare hands as fast as Qin Hao. Not to mention, when it came to pill congealing, one had to handle all aspects of the pill. That required a very, very high level of skill. It's been a long time since I condensed a pill with my bare hands. My technique isn't satisfactory. I couldn't help myself and wasted the medicinal fragrance you sacrificed. I'm ashamed. Qin Hao held the top-grade pill in his hand and apologized to the stunned Jiang Fengyu. Duan Ziju and Song Xing couldn't help but roll their eyes. You're actually an alchemist? Jiang Fengyu recovered from the shock, and disbelief was written all over his face. Apart from refining pills, I've also studied inscriptions, refining, and arrays. Qin Hao replied truthfully. He raised his hand and threw the refined medicinal pill to Jiang Fengyu. Your medicinal fragrance is very special. Although it has been purified by my primordial fire, it is difficult for ordinary people to enjoy it. Why don't I leave it to you as a souvenir? Jiang Fengyu smashed the pill he caught, and his face was full of shame and humiliation. He had used all of his strength, not hesitating to use his source spirit to display the bewitching butterfly soul fragrance. But in front of everyone's eyes, it had been refined into a small pill. For Jiang Fengyu, it was sarcasm, humiliation, and trampling. Fengyu, spare his life. This child has great potential. At this time, Pavilion Master Jiang's voice echoed from the top of the Imperial Tower. Qin Hao's ability to condense pills with his bare hands made him want to recruit him. Jiang Fengyu suppressed the anger in his heart. He pointed at Qin Hao and said, "Did you hear that? My father wants to recruit you as a disciple. He can't bear to see you die in my hands. This is a great fortune for you. Now, I'm giving you a chance to join the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Otherwise, you'll die." He's so lucky. He became the disciple of a royal-grade alchemist. His future is limitless. He can also become the senior brother of second young Master Jiang and eldest young Master Jiang. He'll have a strong backer. Eldest young Master Jiang is ranked 8th on the Emperor Martial list. This kid is going to be rich today. Many contestants immediately spat out words of envy. Everyone was quite envious of Qin Hao's encounter, and there were even some who were jealous. They wished that they were the ones who became Jiang Fengyu's disciple. Join the Medicine Emperor Pavilion? Qin Hao raised his eyebrows and smiled. "I'm sorry, but you're not worthy. Bastard, you can't be taught. You don't want face. Fengyu, kill this little bastard." The elders of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion cursed. They admitted that Qin Hao was a promising talent. If they focused on nurturing him, he might not surpass Jiang Fengyu in the future, but he could at least reach the level of the Great Elder. Since they couldn't subdue him, they would destroy him. "Hee, you dare to reject the recruitment of my Medicine Emperor Pavilion. You're the stupidest alchemist I've ever seen. Last move, die." Jiang Fengyu didn't show any mercy. He opened his arms, and the thick white mist behind him exploded, revealing a strange cauldron with a height of 5 meters and a width of 3 meters. It was strange because this cauldron wasn't real. Instead, it was illusory and translucent. However, it emitted a dazzling golden light and looked very domineering. A dragon's roar was faintly heard. Under the control of Jiang Fengyo's mind, his soul source cauldron suddenly floated above his head. The mouth of the cauldron tilted and aimed at Qin Hao's position. Then, an irresistible suction force emerged from the cauldron and enveloped Qin Hao's body like a hurricane. Qin Hao felt like he was being sucked in by a python. His legs couldn't move, and he slid slowly toward Jiang Fengyo's position. "Become my little pill." Ha ha ha. Jiang Fengyu unleashed his full strength. He was a peak third-level Yuan Venerate. With such a high cultivation, Qin Hao, who only had the strength of a Yuan Monarch, couldn't escape the fate of being sucked into the cauldron. What a powerful force! Duan Ziju watched from afar. He was 1,000 meters away, and his clothes were rustling from the wind on the stage. His face felt like it had been slashed by a knife, and it was burning with pain. If I were to face this move of Jiang Fengyo's, the only thing I could do would be to use my killing move and take him down with me. Song Ziang said frankly. There might still be a chance of survival in the face of death. Jiang Fengyu was indeed a thorny character, so it was reasonable that he would be ranked above 100 kills. However, Song Ziang didn't seem worried when Qin Hao was in danger. He knew very well that he and Duan Ziju couldn't break through this move. Once they appeared before Qin Hao, they might not be able to withstand a single blow. After all, many peak Yuan Venerates had died in the depths of the Blue River mountain range. They had been killed by Qin Hao's ruthless methods. Chapter 997. Western Yang Qin Hao. Song Ziang was filled with anticipation. He was becoming more and more interested in Qin Hao. If it was me, I wouldn't be able to escape from the medicinal cauldron even if I used 5 times the speed of a normal person. Yi Wuhan was very worried. If it was me using the Nightmare Knight, I would most likely be sucked away. Little Nine roared. Qin Wanqin and Yi Shuihan looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Even if they used the Ice Soul and Water Soul, it would still be difficult for them to escape from Jiang Fengyo's medicinal cauldron. Boss, Alliance Master, Cousin, Young Master, Qin Yun, Xiaogua, and Xing were even more anxious. In fact, Qin Hao was in quite a bit of trouble. There was a large disparity in their realms. Even if he used the indestructible Samsara Arts Dragon Jade technique to strengthen his Yuan Qi, he still couldn't stop himself from sliding towards a medicinal cauldron. This person will definitely die. My son will definitely win. Following this, Pavilion Master Jiang arrogantly raised his head and stroked his beard with a smug expression. You forced me to do this. All right, then I'll use my source spirit. Qin Hao thought to himself. Right now, he could only use the power of the dragon soul to resist Jiang Fengyo's soul cauldron. After figuring this out, Qin Hao voluntarily gave up struggling. He opened his arms and offered his body, allowing the transparent medicinal cauldron in midair to suck his feet off the ground. Then, he quickly entered the cauldron. Seeing this scene, many contestants thought that Qin Hao had given up. Jiang Fengyu himself was grinning from ear to ear. Just as Qin Hao was about to be sucked into the soul cauldron, a golden light suddenly appeared on his arm and wound around his fist. Then, with a wild roar, Qin Hao's fist, which was wrapped in golden light, smashed into the medicinal cauldron. Punk! The medicinal cauldron exploded into pieces and disappeared. The strong suction force immediately disappeared. After breaking the medicine cauldron, Qin Hao's fist momentum did not decrease. His body fell down and heavily hit Jiang Fengyo's head. Jiang Fengyu felt a buzzing sound in his head. Then, his vision fell into darkness, and he was paralyzed. After falling to the ground, white foam came out of his mouth, and his limbs twitched crazily, uncontrollably. What? How could this be? Not only is this person immune to second young Master Zhang's bewildering soul fragrance, but he also broke second young Master Zhang's soul cauldron with one punch? Isn't that too overbearing? The entire square was filled with screams. When Pavilion Master Jiang saw that his son had collapsed, his previously complacent expression looked as if he had just eaten a piece of fly feces. It was as uncomfortable as it could get. "Haha, well done. You really scared me just now." As expected of the #1 martial artist of our Western Liang, the Shiliang warriors who were hiding among the common people started to clamor loudly, cheering for Qin Hao. "The outcome has been decided. Can General Manager Gong Sun announce the result?" Qin Hao looked at Jiang Fengyu, who was still spitting. He raised his eyes to look at the royal tower and said, "In addition, the administrator of the Northern Division wrote my name wrong. In fact, my name is not Su Hao, but..." Qin Hao was about to reveal his identity. Coincidentally, Gongsun Chongqing was waiting for Qin Hao to open his mouth. After all, Gongsun Chongqing had waited for 5 years for the agreement between them. However, at this moment, a hoarse howl sounded from behind Qin Hao. Jiang Fengyu did not know what was wrong with him. He took out 5 large silver needles that were as thick as steel nails from his space ring and stabbed them into his head. It was as if 5 lightning rods were erected on his skull, blinding everyone's eyes. Immediately, Jiang Fengyu stopped twitching. The chaotic yuan qi that was shaken by Qin Hao was suppressed. The first second he regained his ability to move, he howled hoarsely. His 5 fingers turned into eagle claws and fiercely tore at Qin Hao's cheek. "I want your life," Jiang Fengyu screamed shrilly. He had never been so disgraced in front of the public like today. He had to use Qin Hao's life to wash away his shame. Sensing that someone was sneaking up on him from behind, Qin Hao snorted coldly. "You have no idea." He turned around and used the water wind steps to meet his opponent. The golden finger in his right hand flashed with a dazzling light. Swish, swish. There were 2 sounds, accompanied by the sound of clothes tearing. Qin Hao and Jiang Fengyu's bodies passed each other, and both stopped on the stage. After stopping, the black cloth covering Qin Hao's eyes disappeared. There were 5 fierce, bloody marks on his cheeks, which were particularly eye-catching. There were also traces of blood flowing from his face. Jiang Fengyu, on the other hand, was holding the black cloth torn from Qin Hao's face. His eyes were wide open, and a strange gurgling sound came from his throat. It seemed that he wanted to say something, but he could not. If one looked along his neck, one would find that there was a bloody finger hole in the middle of his throat. The finger hole penetrated his entire neck. Traces of red lotus fire qi flowed along his meridians and instantly eroded his entire body. Plop! Jiang Fengyu fell on the stage. His huge dead fish eyes were wide open, and he died with everlasting regret. Perhaps even he did not expect that he, who was regarded as the successor of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, would die in the hands of a blind man. "I am my son." Boom! As if thunder had exploded in the sky, the entire Imperial Martial Square was instantly stirred up. The #1 Alchemy Holy Land in the northern frontier, the second young master of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, was killed in the arena in front of Pavilion Master Jiang. Similarly, when the black cloth on Qin Hao's face was torn off, Tian Daluo of the Zhanyuan mansion immediately screamed and jumped up from his seat. His fingers were trembling, and he gritted his teeth and pointed below the stage. "It's really you. Who is this person?" Mansion Master Cui also stood up. This was the first time he had seen the great elder lose his composure. Western Liang Qiangbin's disciple. Qin Hao. Chapter 998. He had caused a lot of trouble. Qin Hao had killed his son and disciple and crippled one of his legs with an arrow. Even if he turned into ashes, Tian Daluo would never forget Qin Hao's face. Qin Hao. He's Qin Hao, the one who grew up with the princess and the one that His Highness yearns for day and night. Many of Daliao's ministers were familiar with Qin Hao's name, but this was the first time they had seen Qin Hao in person. They couldn't help but whisper to each other. "I've long guessed that he's Qin Hao. Looks like my intuition wasn't wrong. Pavilion Master, my Pavilion Master, this person humiliated me in Shiliang. You have to seek justice for me." Fong Tangjing crawled out of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's group and rushed to the Imperial Tower. He grabbed onto Pavilion Master Zhang's waist and cried bitterly. "Get out of my way." Pavilion Master Zhang kicked Fong Tangjing away. No matter how big the matter was, it couldn't compare to the death of his son. Slap. At the same time, the Northern Yin Empire's ministers were sitting in a special position in the Imperial Tower. Murong Zijuan, who was sitting in the middle of the ministers, slapped away the cup in front of him. His brows were furrowed as he leaped up and stared down. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Great, the white-haired man on the stage is Qin Hao. I didn't go to Shiliang to look for you, but you actually sent yourself to me. Since you dare to fight with me for Jingwei, I can't let you live. I'll be taking your head. To be honest, this was also the first time Murong Zijuan had seen Qin Hao. I'm afraid that's not all. Perhaps we've already been played by him. Qi Yuan's cold laughter came from next door. Murong Zijuan looked over and saw Qi Yuan pointing at Jiang Fan and the Ling Yun school. At this moment, Jiang Fan couldn't help but lead the Ling Yun school's disciples to the stage. They kept shouting Master and Sect Master. The scene was extremely lively. Sect Master? Master? Li Bai? Li Bai is Qin Hao in disguise? Boom! Murong Zijuan's head heated up as he instantly understood everything. It turned out that he and Qin Hao had already met before, and the two of them brushed past each other. He could only blame himself for not recognizing him at that time. Good, very good. Today is the first time in my life that I, Murong Zijuan, have such unforgivable killing intent towards someone. Just wait and see. Murong Zijuan snorted coldly and disappeared from where he stood. There's going to be a good show, Qi Yuan muttered with a strange expression. He smiled and disappeared from his seat. This person killed Jiang Fengyu in one move. It seems that Zhou Wuning, that idiot, did not lose unjustly. Also, my pair of venerable weapons, Green Phoenix Demon Vanquishing Pestle, and the Purple Mansion Xuanjin Pill were not wasted for nothing. On the roof of a restaurant in the distance, Zhou Wudao, who was wearing a noble robe, nodded with interest as he stared at the arena. Then, he disappeared. It turns out that the figures below the top 10 in Emperor's Martial Emperor realm are not as weak as I imagined. I really look forward to it. As soon as Zhou Wudao disappeared, a figure appeared on the roof of the restaurant out of thin air. This figure had been hiding for a long time and was not discovered by Zhou Wudao. It could be seen that Gongshu Jian's evaluation of Xianyuan Wuji's cultivation was too low. In fact, he was not much weaker than Zhou Wudao. With a strong interest in the corner of his mouth, Xianyuan Wuji was like a ghost, hiding in the air. The stronger the opponent, the more enjoyable it would be to kill them. The moment Qin Hao's identity was exposed, all the forces in Daliao Imperial City were in turmoil. As the person involved, Qin Hao looked calm. He first patted Jiang Fan's shoulder and greeted the disciples of Ling Yun School. Then, he shouted at Gongsun Chongxing, Supervisor Gongsun, can I change my name? Yes, of course. Gongsun Chongxing smiled kindly. Due to his disfigurement in the past, his smile was as terrifying as a ghost's. However, everyone could feel his happy mood. As Gongsun Chongxing waved his hand, a huge screen appeared in the sky above the Imperial Martial Plaza. On the screen was the list of Imperial Marshals contestants. Su Hao's name flashed and became Qin Hao's name. His ranking had risen from 25th to 13th, placing him below Duan Ziju and Song Xiang. This did not mean that Qin Hao was inferior to Duan Ziju and Song Xiang, but because Jiang Fengyu's ranking was 13th. Big brother is mighty. He's too cool. He killed a third-rank Yuan Venerate in one move. He is indeed my idol. Xiaogua, Little Nine, Yi Shuihan, and the others rushed up to the stage, lifted Qin Hao's limbs, and threw them into the air. Happiness should be shared. Thief, pay for my son's life. Suddenly, a loud shout was heard from the Imperial Martial Pavilion. Pavilion Master Jiang could not bear it any longer and chose to take revenge directly. However, before he could make a move, a dignified snort came from Xiao Yi's nose. Pavilion Master Jiang stopped what he was doing and quickly turned to look at Xiao Yi. Pavilion Master Jiang, don't blame me for not reminding you. Today is the Imperial Martial Tournament held for my daughter. Xiao Yi's tone was very serious. His meaning was obvious. Anyone who dared to make a move would be disregarding Emperor Zhao's authority and provoking Daliao. Xiao Emperor, I'm willing to offer 500,000 medicinal pills to the army of your esteemed empire. Please give face to my emperor father." It was true that Pavilion Master Jiang was the sect leader of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, but in reality, his father was the strongest backer of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. His father was also Emperor Yuan, which was enough to make the royal family of Northern Qi apprehensive. This was the capital that allowed the Medicine Emperor Pavilion to stand tall in Northern Qi. However, Xiao Yi waved his hand and interrupted him. "Emperor Jiang aside, even if Emperor Yin or Emperor Qi were here, no one would dare to cause trouble in front of me, Daliao. Those who offend me, Daliao, must be killed." As soon as Xiao Yi finished speaking, the hundreds of thousands of Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards in the Imperial Marshal Square roared majestically. War King Duan Zhanfei's body flashed with a strong black light, and a set of ferocious armor in the shape of ancient demonic beasts appeared on his body. He was full of deterrence. Pavilion Master Jiang was so angry that his teeth hurt. Xiao Yi and Duan Zhanfei were obviously going to protect Qin Hao. "Fine, the tournament is it? I will compete with you to see who will have the last laugh. My eldest son, Jiang Zizai, will definitely twist off that bastard Qin Hao's head in the arena. At that time, let's see what reason you have to interfere." Pavilion Master Jiang roared and ordered his men to take away Jiang Fengyou's corpse. "Great Elder, I understand what you mean. However, I believe you have seen Xiao Yi's tough attitude. Don't worry, I will let Thousand Knives take revenge on Qin Hao for killing your son, killing your disciple, and breaking your leg. Let's go." Pavilion Master Chui's eyes flashed red. Although he was shouting for Tian Daluo, he was shouting so loudly that it was obvious that he was shouting for Xiao Yi to hear as well. Then, the people from Zhanyue Mansion also left the Imperial Tower. The rest of the tournament was no longer important to them. Zhanyue Mansion's Kill 100 Heads and Medicine Emperor Pavilion's Jiang Fengyu were both dead. They could only pin their hopes on Jiang Zizai, Jiang Fengyou's eldest brother, Kill 1,000 Knives. "This kid has caused me a lot of trouble." Xiao Yi rubbed his head and was about to take K back to the palace when he turned around. Where's K? K, it was missing." Xiao Yi looked at Duan Zhanfei. Chapter 999. A man with a story following the departure of Mansion Master Chui, Pavilion Master Jiang, Murong Zijuan, and Qi Yuan. The other forces with their own ulterior motives also disappeared into the crowd one after another. Yi Lan Yuan and Dan Gu, who were sitting in the leather seating area, exchanged a look, then looked around. They nodded and led the members of the Qin family and Dan Ji's men away quietly. They were the last line of defense behind Qin Hao. Since the enemy had not made a move yet, Shiliang's forces should not be exposed in advance. The Imperial Marshal Plaza became much quieter as the various big shots left one after another. Only Caiogua and the other disciples of the Lingyun school were still cheering for Qin Hao. "Reuniting with all of you, I'm filled with emotions." Qin Hao gestured for everyone to put him down. His consciousness then followed Jiang Fan and Scanling Xiaoxue, Mu Feiyu, and the other disciples. "If I hadn't seen Master use the Waterwind Steps, I wouldn't have believed that you were still alive. Even now, I still feel like I'm dreaming. Come. Can anyone tell me if this is an illusion?" Jiang Fan was so excited that his hands were trembling and he could not stop himself. "Illusion." Qin Hao's lips curled into a mocking smile. He took out the immortal binding lock and whipped it at Jiang Fan's feet. "How about I tell you?" Jiang Fan shuddered as he felt a chill run down his spine. He shrunk his neck. The disciples of Lingyun School laughed when they saw this. There was no doubt that Qin Hao was the sect leader. However, when Mu Feiyu looked into Qin Hao's eyes, his heart was filled with bitterness. As an apothecary, he could tell that the sect master had lost his sight. He must have been severely injured in the Lanchuan Mountain. But Mu Feiyu didn't ask, and neither did the others. Just like before, even if they had doubts about Qin Hao's background, they only needed to know that he was the sect leader who led the sect to glory. That was enough. "You're all here, but she's the only one missing," Qin Hao looked at the highest point of the Imperial Tower through the crowd with a disappointed expression. The Phoenix throne next to the domineering dragon throne had been waiting for its owner to appear. Today, Qin Hao revealed his identity, and he was looking forward to reuniting with Xiao Han the most. But she still didn't come. Brother Qin Hao. While they were stunned, a familiar voice imprinted in the depths of his soul sounded in surprise from behind him. Qin Hao's heart suddenly trembled. When he turned around, Xiao Han, dressed in a snow-white robe, opened her arms and hugged Qin Hao with a smile as beautiful as a flower. In that instant, it was so dazzling that it blinded everyone's eyes. All the participants of the Imperial Martial Grand Competition were filled with envy and jealousy. Furious roars filled the sky and came from all directions of the Imperial Martial Plaza. Liangmin Tavern. Nightfall. In a rather luxurious ward. Looking at Tai Guili, who was still unconscious on the bed, and Gongshu Jian, who had just woken up with a very pale face, Qin Hao sighed that these two people were really lucky. Yao Lao, how's Cripple's injury? Qin Hao asked. Yao Lao, who was treating Tai Guili, slowly turned around and shook his head at Qin Hao. It's very serious. His 5 viscera and meridians have been injured. He can't fight for a short time. If he wants to recover, he will need to rest for at least half a year. There will be a lot of trouble. Taking 80% of the injury from the 100 Heads' strongest soul source technique, even if Tai Guili accidentally killed his opponent with the mirror reflection technique, his condition was obviously not good enough to continue the competition. Of course, this is only what I can do. If you want to shorten his recovery time, I'm afraid you have to do it yourself. Yao Lao said again. Qin Hao's third source spirit, the serene, tranquil water, had a powerful healing ability. It could be said that it had the strength of a half-god. Flesh and bone could heal the dead. As long as there was still a single breath left, it would not be difficult to heal Iron Crutchley. Brother Qin Hao, thank you very much. Although my mecha is completely destroyed and I can't continue the competition, I still want to thank you for helping me so many times. Gongshu Jian propped up his upper body and leaned against the headboard. He already knew Qin Hao's real name. You're welcome. Qin Hao smiled and was about to discuss the mecha with Gongshu Jian. At this time, there was a cough. At this time, Tai Guili woke up. It's you? Blind man. Thank you very much. Seeing Qin Hao standing in front of the bed, Tai Guili immediately dispelled his worries about the unfamiliar environment and let out a long sigh of relief. He began to circulate his vitality to check his injuries. The result was a heart-wrenching pain that spread throughout his body. It was so painful that his forehead was dripping with sweat. Tai Guili smiled bitterly. It seems that this is the end for me. He was very clear about his own condition. With such a seriously injured body, he could not continue the Emperor Martial competition. However, he was really unwilling to give up. Tai Guili secretly clenched his fists. It's a friend of mine who saved you. Qin Hao reminded Tai Guili as he pointed to Yao Lao beside him. Tai Guili glanced over and was shocked. A high-level Yuan venerate. He could roughly determine Yao Lao's cultivation base based on his aura. Senior, please accept. Tai Guili hurriedly got off the bed, overwhelmed by this unexpected favor. However, before he could bow, Yao Lao had already chuckled and disappeared from the room like a ghost with his hands behind his back. Tai Guili felt a little awkward. It seemed like Luo Yunyang had no intention of getting acquainted with him. My friend likes peace and quiet, Qin Hao said with a smile. Tai Guili's embarrassment eased a little. He supported his weak body and sat on the edge of the bed. Your cultivation base is very surprising, Qin Hao added. Actually, he wanted to say that Tai Guili was always spouting nonsense, as if his brain was not normal. All of this was probably an act to confuse his opponent. So what? Defeat is defeat. Victory is also defeat. In short, I can't fight anymore. Tai Guili shook his head and looked at Gongshu Jian sympathetically. It seemed like Gongshu Jian was also unable to fight anymore. I'm very curious. Why are you so obsessed with this competition? You know that you are crippled, yet you still press forward? To put it nicely, Tai Guili was crippled, but not crippled. He was ambitious. To put it bluntly, he was overestimating himself. Princess Jingwei would never marry a crippled person. Tai Guili was also very clear about this. However, why did he continue to fight? Was he not afraid of being ridiculed by others? Qin Hao wanted to know the reason. As for Tai Guili's injuries, Qin Hao was not in a hurry to treat them. I want to save my daughter. Chapter 1000. My wife's looking for me. Save your daughter? Qin Hao frowned. Yes. Iron Crutch Li nodded seriously. Do you know the top 3 in the Emperor Martial Tournament? Well, I have the opportunity to choose the supreme treasure that Emperor Xiao bestowed for the competition. The Tongxin Mirror? Heart-connecting mirror? What is that? Qin Hao had no idea. He had never heard of it before. Under the illumination of the transparent heart mirror, it can cleanse a martial artist's physique and remove the impurities in their body. This is its apparent advantage. Another use is that it has the effect of opening spiritual cavities. It can allow those who are born slow-witted or those who lack intelligence to return to normal. But actually, the most powerful part of the transparent heart mirror is that it can stimulate a martial artist's origin spirit, forcing the martial artist's origin spirit out in advance. Iron Crutch Li listed the functions of the mirror one by one. His daughter was born with mental retardation. She was already 10 years old, but her IQ was only that of a 3-year-old. Even after he grew up, he might not be able to become a normal person. Therefore, he needed to participate in the competition and get into the top 3. Even if he only got 3rd place, he would still have the opportunity to ask for the mystic mirror to open his daughter's spiritual cavities and remove her mental retardation. As for stimulating a martial artist's source spirit, the prerequisite is that the martial artist has to have a source spirit. If you don't have a source spirit, it's useless to use the heart-connecting treasure mirror. Iron Crutch Li Ong looked at the roof, and the image of a cute little girl's round face appeared in his mind. He couldn't bear it. He had tried his best, but, in fact, Qin Hao was even more clear about the problem of a martial artist's source spirit. A portion of people were born with soul power bestowed by the heavens. They were extremely lucky. Of course, these lucky people were only a minority. And among the minority of people, the vast majority of martial artists' primordial spirits had to be opened after birth. Through some fortuitous encounters, or when they were in a life or death situation, their primordial spirits would be activated. The conditions for awakening were very dangerous, and the success rate was less than 10%. But if he used the heart-connecting treasure mirror, he could immediately activate his source spirit. From this, it could be seen that the heart-connecting treasure mirror was indeed a treasure. Even if it was found that the disciple did not have the power of the soul source, the mirror could be used to strengthen the disciple's physique. For a large family or sect, it was undoubtedly a treasure for prosperity. I see. Qin Hao nodded. The fact that Xiao Yi was willing to take out this treasure as a dowry was enough to show how much importance he attached to Xiao Han. However, Qin Hao wasn't too curious about the mirror. Whatever the mirror could do, he could do as well, regardless of whether it was strengthening one's physique or refining pills to open spiritual cavities. Even awakening a martial artist's primordial spirit was not a difficult matter. Moreover, when I help others awaken their soul, there is no pain, no residue, and the process is pleasant. It's a pity that I can't fight for my daughter in my current condition. Tai Guili covered his eyes with a pained expression. In front of Qin Hao, he couldn't help but cry. This was the pitiful heart of all parents. Hey, cripple, let me tell you a piece of good news. I just heard from that high-level Yuan Venerate Senior that Brother Qin Hao can heal all your injuries in a short time. You still have a chance to continue fighting. But I sigh. Gongshu Jian couldn't help but interject. When he thought of his broken mecha, how could he not understand? He wasn't as lucky as Tai Guili. His mecha wasn't sick, so he couldn't save it even after losing it. What? Tai Guili raised his head in shock and looked at Qin Hao in disbelief. His expression seemed to be asking, "Can you really heal me? Can you let me continue fighting?" Qin Hao smiled and nodded. He was about to say that he could. At this time, an excited shout came from outside the tavern. It passed through the walls that had been renovated with strong soundproofing ability and reached Qin Hao's ears. Princess Jingwe has arrived. Come and receive her quickly. The voice was sharp and sounded like a duck. However, it wasn't housekeeper Gongsun. It was Caiogwa's imitation. As soon as Caiogwa finished speaking, the Su family members were frightened. More than 200 people rushed out nervously and knelt at the entrance of the tavern. Sorry, my wife is looking for me. As for your injuries, we will talk about them later. You all should have a good rest first. Qin Hao didn't say anything. He turned around and walked out of the door, leaving behind an unscrupulous figure. Xiao Han, Chen Wanqin, and a large group of people hurriedly walked out of the tavern hall. The Small Good People Tavern had now become a very popular place. Because of Qin Hao, dozens of tall buildings had sprung up overnight. It was as lively as a market. There were all kinds of things being sold. These unscrupulous merchants were selling things while spreading rumors that they knew the story of the handsome man from Western Liang and Princess Jingwe. There were also some small things like bad books and magazines that were spread in the imperial city through his hands. There were things like the story of the handsome man from Western Liang and Princess Jingwe, the story of the white-haired crazy demon and Her Highness Jingwe, and so on. The imperial guards couldn't stop them at all. Sister Wanqin, Xiao Han was wearing a clean ink blue floral dress. It was colder at night in the northern borderline. She also had a thick white velvet cloak on her back. She looked very dignified and had the aura of a princess. When the two met, Xiao Han held Chen Wanqin's hand and was very happy. Is this the daughter of Emperor Xiao and the ex-girlfriend of Big Brother? Yi Shuihan was hiding in a corner with his hands in his sleeves. He stared at Xiao Han with a sneaky look. However, he only felt her temperament and didn't dare to look up and down. What ex-girlfriend? Sister Xiao Han is Big Brother's fiancée. Caiogwa poked Yi Shuihan with his arm and then looked around with fear. Who knew if Qin Hao would suddenly appear? It would be bad if Big Brother heard them talking in private. So beautiful. Xinger couldn't help but praise. My cousin has good taste. Qin Yun was very envious. Your taste is not bad either. Next to Qin Yun, Aku's blood-red eyes suddenly flashed. It was very scary. The wasteland had been integrated, and the Qin people and the vampires had reconciled. Therefore, the relationship between the two was immediately confirmed. At present, Aku was Qin Yun's fiancée. If I could do it all over again, I want to return the goods. Looking at Aku's blood-red eyes and two sharp teeth between her red lips, the corner of Qin Yun's mouth twitched. What did you say? Aku pinched Qin Yun's chest angrily and forced a handful of dog food into the mouths of Caiogwa and Yi Shuihan next door. I miss Xiao Li so much. Caiogwa raised his head and looked at the starry sky. I think Xiao Li's sister Xiao Zhu is not bad. A stream of saliva flowed out from the corner of Yi Shuihan's mouth. Then, the two of them looked at each other and made vulgar sounds. At this time, Qin Hao walked out of the tavern and greeted Xiao Han with a smile. Why are you here? As a princess, it was not appropriate for her to show her face in public, especially at a time like the Imperial Martial Competition. Thinking back to yesterday when Qin Hao hugged Xiao Han in his arms and almost caused the hundreds of thousands of Daoyao's Imperial guards to surround and kill him, Qin Hao felt his scalp go numb. I miss you, of course I want to see you. Xiao Han let go of Chen Wanqin's hand and walked over to Qin Hao like a spoiled little girl. Then I will accompany you to relax. Chapter 1001. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio Crimson Red's Descent Xiao. Han smiled knowingly and jumped up lightly. Then Qin Hao rose into the sky on his sword, holding the beautiful woman's hand. Like an immortal couple, they toured the prosperous imperial city under the bright moon under the starry sky. So happy, this scene made others envious. Looking at the backs of the two leaving, Xing Er's eyes were full of longing. She didn't expect Qin Hao to treat her like Xiao Han. She only wanted to accompany Qin Hao as a little maidservant. That was enough. What are you looking at? Are you not full yet? After a long time, Yi Shuihan came back to his senses when he couldn't see Qin Hao and Xiao Han anymore. He was inexplicably irritable and yelled at the kneeling Su family members. Oh, we are indeed not full yet. Let's go back and continue eating. The first elder of the Su family hurriedly got up and led his family members back to the tavern. He couldn't afford to offend Yi Shuihan. However, the first elder misunderstood Yi Shuihan's meaning. Yi Shuihan yelled, "Dog food." The bright moonlight shrouded the imperial city of Daliao, covering the entire imperial city with a layer of pale silver light. In the night sky, the stars were shining brightly like diamonds, decorating the ancient sky. Qin Hao released a powerful mind and carefully controlled the great void sword under his feet, moving forward at a moderate speed. Behind him, Xiaohan's face was full of warmth. With a smile on her lips, she wrapped her arms tightly around Qin Hao's waist. This scene reminded the two of them of the day when they first arrived at Fengli Temple. That day, Qin Hao swept the outer sect, stepped into the inner sect, beat the deacons, slapped the elders, and made the 10 inner sect elders of Fengli Temple, the #1 sect in the south of Jiang Kingdom, raise the sky curtain. In the end, Great Elder Chu Nin played a dirty trick and used a pebble to forcefully disperse the sky, causing Qin Hao and Xiao Han to accidentally fall. Qin Hao decisively threw out his purple meteorite sword and borrowed its gliding momentum to escape with Xiao Han. The scene at that time was very beautiful, similar to what was happening now. The difference was that when he first came to Fengli Temple, Qin Hao's cultivation was still shallow, and he could not use qi to control the sword like he did now. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. When Qin Hao recalled this, he couldn't help but laugh. He felt a sharp pain. Xiao Han opened her small canine teeth and bit Qin Hao on the back of his neck. Qin Hao was shocked to be attacked. He could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. We haven't seen each other for 5 years. Not only has your cultivation improved, even your teeth force has become so sharp. Qin Hao endured the pain and lovingly pinched Xiao Han's face. If you dare to hide it from me again, lie to me, and fight with a group of desperados alone, I won't just bite you once. I'll leave teeth marks for you to remember forever. You can't do this again. Xiao Han was angry. She blamed Qin Hao for dealing with the Lanchuan mountain range incident. She was really afraid. She knew that Qin Hao had become blind because of this. This was the price Qin Hao paid for Xiao Han's safety. But Xiao Han would rather be the one who became blind. She would rather die by Qin Hao's side than see him become blind. I swear I won't do it again, Qin Hao said. Even now, he still had lingering fears. It was fine if she did not mention it, but now that she did, Qin Hao was a little embarrassed. He slowly turned around. Xiao Han, I have to explain something to you. Actually, the eldest miss of the Jiang mansion, you don't have to explain. I've already explained it for you. Xiao Han interrupted Qin Hao and pursed her lips. And he even used the name Li Bai. He became the fiancé of the eldest miss of the Jiang mansion. You really know how to play. However, Xiao Han had already announced in front of River Yu that Li Bai belonged to her. No. She was helping Qin Hao explain his identity. She could tolerate anything in the world. Only Qin Hao. Xiao Han would never back down. When River Yu learned the truth, he was very flustered at first. How could he dare to compete with Emperor Zhao's daughter for a man? Moreover, Qin Hao had never agreed to be the son-in-law of the Jiang family. It was just River Yu's wishful thinking. If anyone was to blame for this, it was actually old Master Zhang's fault. In short, it was all in the past. Xiao Han had handled everything properly. With such a virtuous wife, what more can a husband ask for? Qin Hao sighed and hugged Xiao Han's waist tightly. I didn't agree to marry you. Xiao Han slapped Qin Hao's hand away and turned her face to the side. She had a look that said, I'm very angry, very angry, very angry. Seeing this, Qin Hao took out a white silk scarf and held it in front of Xiao Han. You tore this from your battle skirt when you were gambling with Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan at Blue River Mountain. In the end, I got it from General Xiao Xiao. I'm first, Qin Hao said with a serious face. Xiao Han couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. She wanted to cry. She hammered Qin Hao's chest and said, You know I'm soft-hearted. After saying this, she plunged into Qin Hao's arms. Qin Hao hugged Xiao Han tightly. In Denda's words, if you want to coax your wife, you have to have a unique skill. Brother Qin Hao, are you really blind? Letting go of Qin Hao's waist, Xiao Han touched the corner of Qin Hao's eyes with pity. It's only temporary. It won't take long for me to recover. Qin Hao said, You're not lying to me? Xiao Han asked again with a serious face. Qin Hao immediately pointed to the back of his neck. The blood on his neck hadn't dried yet. Phew! Xiao Han breathed a sigh of relief. If Qin Hao couldn't see anymore, she would hate herself for the rest of her life. When she lowered her head, Xiao Han couldn't help but be attracted by the great void sword under her feet. The sword was very beautiful. It was emerald in color and had flames around it. Its aura was quite strong. This sword doesn't look like the purple meteorite sword from before. Xiao Han looked at it for a long time. Yes, it's my natal spirit weapon. Qin Hao said. He had forged it with his mind for 3 days and 3 nights. It was not an exaggeration to call it his natal spirit weapon. Oh, right. After I left Mount Lanchuan, you must have been looking for me for a long time. Did you find a very special arrow? One of the sunset arrows, Crimson, killed Xiao Tai's second commander, Jiao Jiao. At that time, Qin Hao's life was hanging by a thread. He didn't have the ability to retrieve it from a corpse. Later, when he was recuperating in the Su family, Qin Hao tried to communicate with Crimson, but he didn't get any response. This matter was buried in his heart for a long time. Qin Hao guessed that the arrow should have been taken by old Master Jiang or Xiao Han subordinates. Arrow? Is it a crimson arrow with a strong murderous aura? Xiao Han really saw it. Chapter 1002. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio Jinshi, surnamed Xiao. Where is it? Is it in Jiangbita's house? Qin Hao was pleasantly surprised. The stone hanging in his heart finally fell to the ground. Look at how happy you are. It's as if you picked up 5 million mysterious crystals. It's in my room. Xiao Han looked at Qin Hao strangely. Was there a need to be so happy? But it was quite strange. When they found a special arrow on the Jiao's body, many Imperial guards went up to pull out. They felt that the arrow was extraordinary and wanted to take it for themselves. However, no one got within 3 meters of the Jiao's body. They were immediately shaken by a terrifying, murderous aura. Those who were mildly affected felt a splitting headache. Those who were severely affected screamed crazily as if they had seen hell. This directly alarmed Jiangbita and the warlord. The two of them tried, but they couldn't get close to the body. With the warlord's profound cultivation, he could forcibly remove the arrow. However, if he did that, the arrow might self-destruct. The warlord sensed that the arrow was psychic. It was a rare high-level spiritual artifact. In the end, he didn't have the heart to destroy it. At that time, this matter really stumped everyone. Strangely, when Xiao Han was the one to remove the arrow, Crimson Red flew out of the wound and landed in Xiao Han's palm like an obedient baby. This made the Daliao soldiers think that Xiao Han was a goddess. What kind of arrow is that? It's very clingy and restless. It flies around my room all day as if it has a life of its own. Xiao Han actually wanted to say that Crimson Red was like a clingy child. Of course, it was only clingy to her. Even couldn't get close to Crimson Red. Qin Hao was shocked. He was deeply shocked by this, because he never thought that Crimson Red would do such an outrageous and strange thing. Even when Qin Hao was at his peak in his previous life, Crimson Red didn't have the qualifications to be psychic. Take me to see it. Qin Hao was a little anxious. Seeing was believing. Are you sure? Xiao Han said. Hurry, Qin Hao urged. All right, I'll take you to see my father. Xiao Han pulled Qin Hao behind him and stepped on the great void divine sword. Powerful primordial level vital qi filled the soles of his feet. A bright flowing light pierced through the night sky and headed straight for Daliao's most solemn palace. Hey, wait a minute. I want to see that arrow. Why did you bring me to see Emperor Xiao? Now, Qin Hao was a little anxious. Since you're hugging my waist, it's not up to you. Xiao Han playfully said. Whoosh! A powerful light descended from the sky, falling straight into the hall of vast thinking in the imperial palace. Who is it? Oh, so it's the princess. Yeah. Who's the guy hiding behind the princess skirt? How dare you? Hand over your life. Get out of the way. Without waiting for the palace guards to draw their swords, Xiao Han angrily grabbed Qin Hao by the collar and dragged him inside. Wow, when did our Princess Jingyu become so bold and unrestrained? A person was stupefied as he looked at her. Smack! His captain raised his hand and slapped him. The princess is bold and unrestrained. Do you want to die? Yes, yes, yes. The princess is bold and unrestrained. Sister, you're back. Did you see him? Sensing Xiao Han's aura, Kerr was chewing on a pastry and holding a candy in her hand as she jumped out of the hall. As soon as she looked up, the pastry fell out of her mouth. It's you indeed, Mr. Li. Little Kerr, hello. Actually, I'm Mr. Qin, being grabbed by the collar by Xiao Han. Qin Hao slipped and almost tripped. Before he could finish his greeting, he was dragged into the inner courtyard. Wow, there's a good show to watch. Kay was excited. She quickly stuffed the candy into her mouth and followed quickly. Creak! Pushing the door open, Xiao Han threw Qin Hao into the room. Gulp! Qin Hao swallowed his saliva and looked at Xiao Han, who was taking off her cloak and jacket. Her exquisite curves made Qin Hao's mouth go dry. No, there's no need to be in such a hurry, right? Although 5 years is a long time, we've already grown up. According to the wedding date written by father and mother, it's indeed time to... What are you talking about? Xiao Han couldn't help but find it funny. She rolled her eyes at Qin Hao and then pointed her slender finger at Qin Hao's back. Stunned, a sharp force swept across the back of his head. A murderous aura spread and chilled him to the bone. An unprecedented fatal aura forced Qin Hao to unleash his full cultivation. He released his level 6 Imperial aura without holding back. Red lotus flames surged around his body. Amidst the flames, Qin Hao's fist was covered in dragon scales. He was about to retaliate with a punch. When he turned around, he saw a 3-foot-long scarlet arrow floating in front of him. The arrowhead was aimed at Qin Hao's forehead. Whoosh! Qin Hao heaved a sigh of relief. No wonder the pressure was so strong. It was the sunset scarlet arrow. Come back. Qin Hao dispersed the power of his 2 souls and held his palms flat. His tone was very calm as he muttered. It was as if the arrow would fall into his palm obediently in the next second like before. However, it didn't. In fact, it did fall. But before it completely fell, the arrow shot out with a whoosh, abandoning Qin Hao and flying to Xiao Han's side. As Xiao Han stretched out her hand, the scarlet arrow turned into a docile little lamb and slowly fell into her palm. It even rubbed against her palm to show its loyalty. This was undoubtedly a great mockery to Qin Hao. You bastard who values a lover over a friend. Qin Hao couldn't help but lose face. He couldn't help but point at the scarlet arrow and curse. Chapter 1003. The father-in-law meets the son-in-law. Qin Hao's eyebrows trembled. In my previous life, I spent 300 years to train you, refine you, and raise you with my blood essence. How dare I rebel against you today? Can't I deal with you? He was about to use the sunset mental cultivation method to forcefully remove the arrow. As Kair spoke, a thought appeared in his mind. Abandon? No. 300 years of companionship. How could an abandonment sever his friendship with Qi Hong? There must be something fishy about this. Qin Hao dispersed the sunset mental cultivation method and spread his consciousness over Xiao Han's body to sense carefully. He sensed that Xiao Han's aura was not normal. Faintly, there was a mysterious force that was moving her vitality to a certain location. If Qin Hao recovered his vision and opened his red lotus fiery eyes, he would discover that Xiao Han had gathered a small amount of vitality in her crescent moon pendant. Through the crescent moon pendant, it was transmitted to the Qi Hong arrow. Under the nourishment of Xiao Han's vitality, the arrow underwent some subtle changes and seemed to be strengthened. In fact, whether it was Xiao Han or the arrow, the changes in both were very weak. Ordinary people would not be able to detect them. Even Xiao Han herself did not notice it. Qin Hao could only vaguely sense a trace of it through his powerful spiritual energy. This made him very surprised. He could not explain it. Why would Xiao Han's vitality be absorbed by Qi Hong when it passed through a certain location? Clearly, Qi Hong stayed by Xiao Han's side because of this. It could obtain a metamorphosis power from Xiao Han. If there was a god that descended from the god realm, he would definitely give Qin Hao a reasonable explanation. Even the god of the god realm would cry bitterly and hug Xiao Han's thigh, becoming the second obedient baby that Qi Hong shot out like an arrow. This was because Xiao Han's vitality was not ordinary. It was the Divine Emperor's Qi with the highest bloodline in the god realm. The Divine Emperor's Qi could transform a spiritual weapon into a divine weapon, a true divine weapon. Unfortunately, Qin Hao still could not break through the barrier of the god realm. The Divine Emperor's Qi was a level of power that far exceeded his knowledge in both his previous and current life. I don't care. Qin Hao racked his brains, but he couldn't figure it out. He casually waved his hand and said, "Let Qi Hong stay. We'll talk about it after I finish the Monarch martial competition and become the champion." Although he didn't know why Qi Hong liked to stick to Xiao Han, Qin Hao knew that Qi Hong didn't abandon him. Crimson Red spirituality was content. Hearing its master's words, it immediately flew out of Xiao Han's palm and danced around Qin Hao's body. After circling around him 3 times, it returned to Xiao Han's hand, as if it was sending a message to Qin Hao. "Master is so good. I won't abandon you." Ha ha ha, boasting. If you can't take it back, then you can't take it back. Using the Imperial Martial Competition as an excuse. Even if it is the Emperor Martial Competition, do you think you can snatch the championship just because you want to? "Okay," or pointed at Qin Hao and mocked him. She lifted her rosy little face and said, "Let's not talk about the mysterious top person on the Emperor Martial roll. I'm afraid even Zhou Wudao will be enough for you. It will be difficult for you to marry my sister." What she meant was that Qin Hao might not even be able to defeat Zhou Wudao, let alone challenge the top person on the Emperor Martial roll. Based on K.'s current expression, the top person on the Emperor Martial roll had a heaven-defying cultivation base. Xiao Han, who was at the side, listened quietly and didn't interrupt. She had a faint smile on her face, as she still believed in Qin Hao's ability, especially when Qin Hao had unleashed his full power just now. On the surface, he looked like a level 6 Yuan Monarch, but his aura was so imposing that even 100 level 6 Yuan Monarchs couldn't compare Qin Hao's. "Whether I can become a champion or not depends on your eyes. As for Zhou Wudao, forgive me for being impolite and arrogant, but he is nothing in front of me," Qin Hao said proudly. Kay immediately turned her mouth away. "Young Master Qin, Emperor Xiao invites you in." At that moment, a deep and powerful voice was heard from outside the room. Xiao Han frowned. As expected, once she brought big brother Qin Hao here, her father wouldn't let go of the opportunity to meet him in private. "Emperor Xiao." Qin Hao's eyes widened as he looked at Xiao Han. "Why are you looking at me? He didn't invite me." Xiao Han turned around and placed Qi Hong on the arrow rack. However, as soon as she released her hand, Qi Hong immediately floated up and stuck to Xiao Han like a plaster. Xiao Han couldn't shake it off. "What I mean is, why don't we go together?" This was the first time he was meeting his father-in-law in private, so Qin Hao felt that it would be better if Xiao Han accompanied him. "Young Master Qin, Emperor Xiao said that he wants to see you alone." The powerful voice was heard again from outside the room. All right." Qin Hao had no choice but to put his hands behind his back and step out of the door. He had to face what he had to face alone. Judging from Xiao Han's attitude, it was obvious that she wasn't going to accompany him. However, I've never been afraid of anyone. The moment Qin Hao stepped out of the room, he turned around and kissed Xiao Han's ear at lightning speed. "Ha ha!" Qin Hao laughed at K.'r proudly. "Aren't you ashamed?" K.'r quickly covered her eyes with her hands. Xiao Han was also angry. "K, it was underage. How could you do this?" She waved her fist and wanted to teach Qin Hao a lesson. However, Qin Hao took a step forward and dashed out, kissing her and running away. "Uncle Xiao Ming, that bad guy bullied my sister." K.'r chased after him and pointed at Qin Hao in the courtyard. "I didn't see anything." A mighty middle-aged general in the courtyard said calmly with an extremely old-fashioned expression. Then he strode out of the Hall of Thought. Ha ha ha. Chapter 1004. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin the first test of father-in-law after leaving the Hall of Intelligence. Qin Hao followed Xiao Ming to the Imperial Martial Hall. Along the way, they met patrolling guards who bowed respectfully to Xiao Ming. Only when Xiao Ming and Qin Hao were far away did the guards continue their patrol. It was enough to prove that Xiao Ming's position in the palace was not ordinary. However, after walking for a while, Qin Hao noticed that the surroundings were getting quieter and quieter, and they met fewer people. This was not normal. If he guessed correctly, Xiao Ming was leading him to a side path. "Uncle, you're Xiao Ming, right? I heard the guards call you that just now. May I ask, where are you taking me?" Qin Hao could not help but ask. "We will take a small path and enter the Imperial Martial Hall from the back door," Xiao Ming said frankly, dispelling Qin Hao's suspicions. "Why can't I go through the front door when Emperor Xiao wants to see me?" Qin Hao stopped and his face darkened. "Is he looking down on me?" "Qin Hao, your identity is very special. You should know what Northern Yin and Northern Shi will think if Emperor Xiao wants to see you in private. What will Morong Zijuan and Qi Yuan think? What will the people of Medicine Emperor Pavilion and Zhanyuan Mansion think?" Xiao Ming stopped and said, "Also, do you know Xiao Guang? I am his teacher." Xiao Guang was the leader of the 4 statue-like knights who accompanied Xiao Han to the Blue River Mountain. When Qin Hao disguised himself as Li Bai, he had met Xiao Guang. Xiao Guang was extremely loyal to Xiao Han. As the teacher who nurtured Xiao Guang, Xiao Ming only wanted to tell Qin Hao that he would not harm him. "I understand." Qin Hao sighed and continued walking. During the Imperial Martial competition, it was not appropriate for him to meet Emperor Xiao openly. It would make it seem like his father-in-law was giving him special treatment. If word got out, the outside world would gossip. There was nothing wrong with Emperor Zhao's way of doing things, and he did not look down on Qin Hao. Seeing Qin Hao continue to follow, a trace of treachery flashed in the corner of Xiao Ming's mouth. He concealed it extremely well as he thought to himself, "Others are gossiping? Emperor Xiao is not afraid of those bastards. Qin family boy, there is something fun waiting for you." After leading Qin Hao to the back door of the Imperial Martial Hall, Xiao Ming did not even give Qin Hao a chance to thank him before Xiao Ming hurriedly turned and left. At this moment, there was a narrow door in front of Qin Hao. In front of the small door stood a tall and sturdy man. He was as tall as Qi Xiong, perhaps even taller than Qi Xiong. The giant man's body was too big. His upper body was bare, and his frightening fists were wearing iron gloves. He leaned against the door frame, completely blocking the door. Accompanied by a snoring sound that entered Qin Hao's ears, he understood that there was someone dozing off in front of him. Was. "Friend, please make way," Qin Hao said in a low voice. The big Xiong did not respond at all and continued to snore. "Friend, please move." Qin Hao raised his voice. However, the big Xiong who was blocking the door still had his eyes closed. His arms were crossed as he slept soundly. Sparkling saliva was even dripping from the corner of his mouth. "Sorry, I was rude." Qin Hao felt that as long as the big Xiong was not deaf, he should have been woken up long ago. It was obvious that he was pretending to be asleep. In that case, he had no choice but to take action. While speaking, Qin Hao used his hand to pull the big Xiong, trying to pull him to the side. However, the big Xiong did not budge. This surprised Qin Hao slightly. He knew better than anyone else how strong his physical body was. That pull just now had the force of at least 250,000 caddies of the sacred suppressing stone. Even a peak Yuan monarch would have been pulled 3 meters away. Haha, I understand. Is this a test from Emperor Xiao? Qin Hao sneered. Xiao Ming had brought him to the small door and even asked an expert to block the way in advance. It was obviously intentional. It was not difficult to guess that this was deliberately arranged by Xiao Yi. As the saying went, when a son-in-law visited for the first time, the father-in-law would not treat him well. Qin Hao felt that given his friendship with Xiao Yi, his father should be exempt from these customs. However, he did not expect Emperor Xiao to be like this too. "All right, let's do it." I'm not afraid of you. In that case, I don't need to show mercy. Qin Hao silently circulated his dragon soul power and activated 15% of his dragon soul power. In an instant, dense dragon scales covered the surface of his fist. With a burst of strength, the muscles on his arms swelled rapidly as he punched the big Xiong's chest. His fist streaked across the air, creating a golden ripple. Boom! A dull sound was heard. Qin Hao felt that he had hit a big piece of meat. He had hit it. Before he could rejoice, shock filled Qin Hao's face. 15% of his dragon soul power was enough to send the ironback demonic lizard king's 150-foot body flying. However, the big Xiong did not move at all. Ha ha! A burst of laughter came from the study of the Imperial Martial Hall. Xiao, he was wearing a plain robe and squatting on the ground, peeling peanuts and throwing them into his mouth one by one. Behind him, 3 figures stood in the room. One of them was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had one hand on Xiao Yi's desk while the other hand held a brush and was drawing on a piece of paper. No one knew what he was drawing. The other 2 figures were old men with white hair and beards. The 2 old men were holding wine jugs and happily clinking them. Chapter 1005. Translator. Nioibo, Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio Taichi sect. If martialists from the great families of the Northern Territory were present, they would definitely be shocked and kowtow to these 2 old men. These 2 were called Young Crouching Dragon and Phoenix. They were reclusive geniuses with extremely high cultivation bases in the Northern Territory. One was good at inscriptions, while the other was good at refining. Both of them were peak monarchs and half-step thearchs. However, they had actually been recruited by Xiao Yi to be his subordinates. 2 words: childish. In response to Qin Hao's punch towards the burly man, the old man in the yellow Taoist robe disdainfully extended a finger and then poured another mouthful of wine into his mouth. Mr. Crouching Dragon, are you very confident in Hu Qi? Xiao Yi did not turn his head. He was still casually peeling peanuts. Hu Qi had originally been an unknown general in his army who had been discovered by Young Crouching Dragon and Phoenix. After realizing that this person was brave and valiant, he had been promoted step by step and was now the commander of the Tiger Leopard Army. Hu Qi is a level 5 Yuan Venerate with innate divine strength and bravery. Qin Hao is too naive to think that he can shake Hu Qi off with a single punch. Young Crouching Dragon said proudly. He was wearing an earth-colored robe. He and Crouching Dragon had discovered Hu Qi among the soldiers, so they naturally knew how capable he was. Zhou Wudao, who was ranked 3rd on the Emperor Martial list, had no more than a 60% chance of defeating Hu Qi under normal circumstances if he did not use his ultimate techniques and trump cards. In other words, Hu Qi could fight Zhou Wudao on par with him. It seems like it won't be that easy for my son-in-law to reach the Emperor Martial Hall. Xiao Yi clapped his hands to get rid of the peanut crumbs and got up to smile at the 2 of them. Young Crouching Dragon and Phoenix immediately raised their noses as if to say, of course. How could Qin Hao pass through so easily with Hu Qi blocking the way? He might not even have the ability to pass. If Qin Hao could not even pass the gate, he would not be qualified to meet Emperor Xiao, let alone become Daoyao's son-in-law. This was just a test to enter the gate. In the outside world, Yuan Venerate powerhouse. After this punch, Qin Hao roughly gauged the other party's cultivation base. Not only was he a Yuan Venerate powerhouse, but he wasn't an ordinary Yuan Venerate either. Thus, he couldn't help but be surprised. Hu Qi was still snoring with his arms crossed. He didn't even look at Qin Hao, showing a hint of disdain. Qin Hao's face suddenly turned ugly. I activated 15% of my dragon force, but it didn't have any effect on this person. His physical strength and strength must far surpass those of the same level. Qin Hao frowned inwardly. This was a little tricky. At this time, he suddenly had an idea and shouted, "There's wine? Where's the wine?" Hearing this, Hu Qi's closed eyes suddenly opened wide. He looked around, and his body, which was blocking the small door, could not help but reveal a gap. Good chance. Qin Hao was delighted. He was about to use the water wind step to dodge the other party. However, before Qin Hao could move, Hu Qi, who had sobered up, quickly raised his hand and blocked Qin Hao's chest with his thick arms. He glared fiercely at Qin Hao and said, "You brat, how dare you lie to me? F***CK." Qin Hao was surprised once again. He had originally thought that this person's aura was heavy and his breathing was rough. He was definitely big and had explosive power, but his movements were slow. However, even his reaction was very fast. Qin Hao scratched his head awkwardly and said, You're awake? Excuse me, I'm passing by." Don't give me that, brat. Unless I lie down, you won't be able to pass through this door," Hu Qi said in a low, muffled voice. He had received military orders to guard this place and not allow anyone to pass. Military orders had to be obeyed, and dereliction of duty would result in death. Guarding this place for a day was enough. If he succeeded, Hu Qi would be promoted. Qin Hao's mouth twitched subconsciously. There was no way to resolve this peacefully. The man in front of him was definitely a roadblock that Xiao Yi deliberately set up. If Qin Hao could not pass through, it would mean that he was not qualified to enter the Imperial Martial Hall, much less marry Xiao Han. If Qin Hao turned around and left now, he would definitely be mocked by Xiao Yi. For Xiao Han's sake and my own sake, I have to defeat this person. Qin Hao understood everything in his mind. However, it was not easy to successfully pass through. The other party did not even frown after receiving 15% of the Dragon Force. He was rather strong. 15% of the Dragon Force was already Qin Hao's limit in his human form. If he strengthened it any further, dragon scales would grow on his arms. When the scales reached 50 and above, he would enter beast mode. In that state, Qin Hao would be exceptionally bloodthirsty and lose himself. For example, when he fought Tian Boiwang in the Medicine Valley, he would have to fight to the death once he entered beast mode. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Qin Hao would not excite the Dragon Force too much. Moreover, he did not want to expose his trump card at this time. This was a bit difficult. Obviously, it would be difficult to defeat the man in front of him without transforming. "Kid, I know you are from Shiliang. Don't be delusional. The time you spent with our princess was just to reminisce. As for the current you are no longer worthy of our princess. I don't mind telling you that my strength is enough to rank in the top 5 of the Imperial Martial Hall. You can't pass through this door in front of me." Hu Qi pointed at the door behind him. "Is that so?" Qin Hao snorted coldly. "Even if I don't use the Dragon Force, I have 100 ways to make you get lost." As he spoke, Qin Hao spread his legs and lowered his back. He slowly raised his right hand with his palm facing up and his left hand moving to his dantian. His movements seemed to be soft but smooth. At this moment, a profound Taiji radiance appeared behind him. "You overestimate yourself." Hu Qi felt that he was wasting his breath on Qin Hao. If he did not leave, he would throw Qin Hao out. He pressed his big hand on Qin Hao's shoulder. At this moment, Qin Hao also made a move. His left palm stretched out like a snake and wrapped around Hu Qi's thick arm. Then he grabbed Hu Qi's wrist with his right hand and pressed it down. Crack! Hu Qi's wrist was dislocated and he could not help but grimace in pain. He was immediately furious. His primordial qi surged wildly, and he was about to counterattack. However, at this moment, Qin Hao grabbed Hu Qi's arm, and with a tug, he actually threw Hu Qi out in a bizarre manner. Hu Qi felt as if he had stepped into cotton. He could not muster up any strength and was completely helpless. Thanks. With a flash, Qin Hao pushed open the door and entered, disappearing in front of Hu Qi plop. Hu Qi fell flat on his face. He turned around and shouted, "What the hell?" He fell to the ground for no reason. Even Tiger Qi himself was confused. East Continent's Tai Chi sect? Inside the Imperial Martial Hall, Wulong, who saw the scene through a huge crystal, was shocked. Just now, Qin Hao had used the fist technique of the Eastern Continent's Tai Chi sect. He had borrowed the force of the opponent's strength and thrown Tiger Qi out with little effort. "Emperor, are you sure your son-in-law is from Western Liang?" Feng Chu stared at Xiao Yi cautiously. She had been to the East Continent with Wulong and knew about the Tai Chi sect. The Tai Chi sect was originally the strongest empire in the East Continent, an extremely powerful sect in Daqin. However, for some reason, the sect was destroyed by the Sunset Battle God. I'm not too sure. Chapter 1006. Translator. Nioibo, Studio 5 element, flying, sword logically speaking. Qin Hao was from Shiliang. But how could he use the fist technique of the Tai Chi sect? Could it be? In the past 5 years, did Qin Hao go to the East Continent? Forgive me for being blunt. No matter what the reason is, he will not have a good ending once he is involved with the Tai Chi sect. For the sake of the princess, please reconsider. Young Phoenix bowed and said. Xiao Yi pondered for a moment and waved his hand. Don't leak the fact that Qin Hao knows the Tai Chi fist technique. As for him and Honor, Xiao Yi pondered for a few seconds before he chuckled and said, he hasn't entered the Imperial Martial Palace yet, has he? Qin Hao didn't pass the test, so he naturally didn't have the face to be Dao Yao's son-in-law. Don't tell me that Mr. Wulong and young Phoenix aren't confident in their attainments in inscription and artifact forging. Xiao Yi asked. He clapped his hands, and a peanut flew into his mouth. It's Qin Hao's luck that sent Hu Qi flying. Wulong clasped his hands behind his back. That's right. He used a trick and didn't fight Tiger Qi head-on. If he did, he wouldn't beat Tiger Qi's match. Even so, he won't be able to pass the purple bamboo forest again, young Phoenix said confidently. There were more difficult tests waiting for Qin Hao. Let's wait and see. Xiao Yi tossed another peanut into his mouth and stared at the image on the crystal with great interest. In the picture, Qin Hao entered the purple bamboo forest in the backyard of the Imperial Martial Palace through the back door. This purple bamboo forest was his second test. Regardless of whether Qin Hao had been to the East Continent or not, why did he learn the Tai Chi fist technique? Xiao Yi only needed to prove whether Qin Hao had enough potential to protect Xiaohan. If there is, so what if we become enemies with Daqin of the East Continent? Xiao Yi had fought for 10 years, so he did not mind fighting for another 10 years. Purple bamboo forest. Time seemed to have slowed down. The forest was quiet, and there was a cold, murderous aura hidden within. Qin Hao's deep eyes looked around. Even though he couldn't see, his mind could clearly sense danger approaching. A layer of goosebumps appeared on his body. Xiao Yi, don't you think you've gone overboard? It was not enough for her to take the postgraduate entrance exam once. She had to continue taking the postgraduate entrance exam. The murderous aura hidden in this forest made Qin Hao feel a sense of urgency, proving that the thing that was about to arrive was not ordinary. Moreover, it was not a joke. All right, for the sake of Xiaohan, no matter how difficult it is, we will accompany you to the end. Qin Hao rolled up his sleeves, and his majestic aura spread out. The great void divine, sword in his ring, was ready to strike. Hiss! A strange sound came from an unknown location. It was very weak. However, in the next second, a wave of bamboo leaves fell from the sky like a huge net. It was incomparably thick, with countless layers of bamboo, leaves stacked on top of each other, heavily pressing down on Qin Hao's head. Danger! Qin Hao did not think too much. His palm flashed, and a sharp emerald sword light slashed across in front of him. Whoosh! The sword light broke through the thick bamboo leaves, and the crescent-shaped sword flew for 100 meters. It easily cut through countless bamboo poles as thick as a leg, and the creaking sound of them falling to the ground could be heard. Good sword, good sword. In the Imperial Martial Palace, as the sword light suddenly flashed out from the crystal, Wulong and young Phoenix stared at the great void, divine sword in Qin Hao's hand, and exclaimed in unison. The quality of this sword is at the peak of Emperor weapon. It's only a little bit away from becoming a venerable weapon. Wulong pointed at the image and said, not only that, judging from the strength of the sword light coming from the crystal, Old Man concluded that this sword still has the possibility of upgrading. More importantly, it does not have any inscriptions on it. What a treasure! Young Phoenix could not hide the thirst in her eyes. As expected of the famous blacksmith master in the northern borderline, Xiao Yi nodded. Based on the strength of the sword light coming from the image, young Phoenix immediately analyzed the quality of the sword in Qin Hao's hand. Xiao Yi did not have such sharp eyesight. He was glad that the two old men followed him. Unfortunately, even if he has an extraordinary divine soldier, your son-in-law will not be able to pass through the purple bamboo forest. Wulong stroked his beard. The layer of falling bamboo leaves was only used to warn Qin Hao that danger was approaching. What came next was his real test. As expected, as Wulong exited, 5 streams of light suddenly appeared on the crystal image. They pierced toward Qin Hao from 5 different directions. They were as fast as lightning and could not be seen with the naked eye. Judging from the shape of the flying lights, they were 5 swords. 5 swords of different attributes, but all of them were sharp. One was a flaming sword surrounded by flames. One was a wooden sword emitting green light. One was a water sword with a trail of water. They were the 5 elements swords of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The inscriptions on these 5 flying swords were all at the royal grade. Wulong and young Phoenix spent 49 days forging them. Whether it was the selection of materials, the quenching, or the smelting, they were all top-notch. Just like Qin Hao's great void sword, they also had the ability to evolve. In order to test Qin Hao, they took 49 days and there was still 1 day left before they were finished. But it did not matter. Even if there was 1 day left, Wulong and young Phoenix firmly believed that Qin Hao would not be able to break through the 5 flying swords. After all, the 5 flying swords had already been upgraded to venerable weapons. They were all at the royal grade. Chapter 1007. Translator. Nioibo, Studio A. Stroke of Fortune. Qin Hao's sword did not possess the strength to break through the 5 elements sword. With Qin Hao's cultivation, he could not break through the 5 elements sword's interception. The crouching dragon and phoenix younglings were determined to do so. They would definitely lose all their face and turn back. When they recalled the scene of Qin Hao leaving dejectedly, the two of them were filled with pride. This was the moment for Wulong and Chu Feng to prove themselves to Emperor Shao. In the purple bamboo forest, the 5 elemental swords transformed into 5 streaks of sharp light. 4 of the swords were in the front, and the last one was in the back, forming a pentagram. They were like 5 arrows, aiming at the 5 vital points of Qin Hao. In the face of danger, Qin Hao gripped the great void tightly and pulled it forward with all his might. With a sharp sound of friction, he circled around the 4 flying swords in front of him and flung them to the side. At this moment, the last golden sword that was emitting golden light took the opportunity to rush towards Qin Hao's chest. "I'll block." Qin Hao hurriedly placed Great Void in front of him. Clang! The sound of metal striking suddenly spread out from the purple bamboo forest, and the sound waves shook the bamboo leaves to the ground. The sharpest golden sword of the whooshing sword happened to hit the back of the Great Void sword. With one hit, the Great Void sword was pushed into a huge arc suddenly. Qin Hao felt a torrential force invading his body from the front. The unparalleled sword Qi caused him to fly out involuntarily. His body broke 7 or 8 bamboo poles in succession before stopping. After stopping for a moment, Qin Hao opened his mouth and vomited a fountain of blood. Royal grade inscription technique. What a powerful sword Qi. Qin Hao's expression was extremely shocked. 2 long marks appeared on the soles of his feet. His palms that were holding onto the Great Void trembled uncontrollably. Blood even flowed out from between his thumb and index finger. It was enough to prove that the crouching dragon and phoenix younglings were not exaggerating. The 5 flying swords were indeed powerful. Sensing the auras of the 5 different attributes, Qin Hao deduced that they were 5 weapons based on the feel of their hands. 5 special weapons with the power of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Xiao Yi has a great refining expert under his command. Qin Hao frowned. His face was even uglier than when he met Hu Qi in his previous life. His attainments in refining and inscription were also extraordinary. Although he had not reached the emperor level, He had reached the Emperor level. According to the strength analysis transmitted by the Great Void Sword, just now, the 5 weapons that blocked his path were all middle-grade venerable weapons. Furthermore, they were engraved with the Emperor-level 5 elements inscription technique. This was quite troublesome. Although the 5 elements restrained each other, they also promoted each other. Even if no one instilled Yuan Qi to control them, once the 5 elemental weapons appear at the same time, they could completely complement each other's strength, and the power would be endless. In other words, the only way was to shatter it. Even if it was just one of the swords, it would still be fine. Otherwise, Qin Hao would forever be stuck here, unable to take even half a step forward. Emperor Shao, you really think too highly of me. Even the royal grade craftsman and the great master of inscription are here. Qin Hao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and clenched his teeth. I have only reached the Origin King level. Fortunately, my great void sword is extraordinary. Otherwise, if it was someone else, they would have been stabbed to death. Murder. It was simply murder. This was not marrying a wife. It was playing with his life. However, for Shao Han, Qin Hao was willing to risk his life. Fortunately, these 5 weapons just have the embryonic form of spiritual consciousness and have sprouted spiritual sprouts. They are not as mature as Qi Hong and are full of spirituality. Otherwise, even if I reach the venerable level, I will definitely be finished. Qin Hao heaved a long sigh. The 5 weapons in front of him were indeed very powerful, but there was a flaw. He could take the risk. Immediately, he used the profound water-wind steps, and the enduring samsara absolute art in his body was activated. Qin Hao shot forward with his sword. The 5 flying swords were not to be outdone. Like 5 horses galloping together, they moved side by side, rolling up flames, water, and golden light. They slashed at Shao Han. In an instant, clanging sounds of collision resounded in the purple bamboo forest. In the midst of the sparks, Qin Hao was surrounded by 5 venerable-level swordsmen. The 5 elements flying swords and the Great Void Sword created a total of 6 different sword auras that wreaked havoc, making the purple bamboo forest a mess. For words, extremely childish. In the study of the Imperial Martial Hall, Wulong spat out disdainfully as he watched Qin Hao fall into a battle with the 5 elements swords on the crystal screen. The 5 element swords have just sprouted spiritual sprouts, but we are not stupid. Qin Clan's brat, watch me tire you out like a dead donkey. Young Phoenix muttered. She made a series of hand seals with her palms, and a huge emperor-level consciousness spread out to communicate with the 5 elements inscription technique. At this moment, the 5 elements swords that were fighting with Qin Hao became sharper, stronger, and more violent. The pressure on Qin Hao suddenly increased. As time went by, even though the number of dragons made up for Qin Hao's loss of vitality, his physical fatigue was no longer something that could be filled with tranquil water. This was because the battle with the 5 element swords was too intense. It was no less than fighting 5 venerable-level swordsmen with superb swordsmanship. This is really troublesome. If this goes on, I will be the first to collapse from exhaustion. Qin Hao was trapped in the 5 sword auras and held on for 3.5 hours. This was really rare. Even Wulong and young Phoenix, who were hiding in the dark, had a new level of respect for him. However, how could a body of flesh and blood be exhausted by emotionless weapons? Nanyang was too stupid. He had to find a way to break the 5 elements inscription technique. Qin Hao knew very well that with his cultivation and the current grade of the Great Void Sword, he could not break a mid-tier venerable weapon. Only by breaking the 5 elements inscription technique could he win. Let's start with you. Qin Hao silently activated 10% of his dragon soul power. Golden scales suddenly flashed on the back of his hand, and he forcefully repelled the other 4 flying swords. Red lotus fire surged in his left palm, and he grabbed the flying sword that was emitting a fiery aura. Among the 5 flying swords, the one that caused the least damage to Qin Hao was the flaming sword. This was because Qin Hao had the red lotus fire, which was ranked 3rd on the continent's mysterious flame list. Red Lotus Overlord Flame, the king of all flames. According to Qin Hao's idea, if he fed the flaming sword with the Red Lotus fire and helped it rise to a higher grade, it might rebel against its master. At that time, fire would subdue wood. He could take the flaming sword and break the wooden sword. The reason why Qin Hao did not inject the Red Lotus fire in his Great Void Sword was because the current grade of the Great Void Sword could not break the wooden sword. After making up his mind, Qin Hao's hand firmly grasped the flaming sword. The flaming sword struggled madly. However, Qin Hao was not afraid of it at all. "You just have to obediently work for me," Qin Hao said in a pleased tone. He was certain that he had the flaming sword under his control. However, suddenly, an unusual feeling came from his palm. Qin Hao's heart thumped. As one of the rare royal-grade weapon craftsmen in the continent 600 years ago, Qin Hao knew that the flaming sword had not been completely tempered. In other words, it was not a finished product now. In a deeper sense, if it was not a finished product, it meant that its master had not dripped blood on it. This was a common problem for all weapon craftsmen. Wonderful. Chapter 1008. Translator. Nyoibo, Studio Editor. Nyoibo, Studio, the Formation Emperor of the Northern Frontier, he wanted to use force to force the flaming sword into his hands. Now this was great. That stupid blacksmith dared to give an unfinished, venerable weapon to Qin Hao, who knew how to forge weapons. That meant that the golden sword, wooden sword, water sword, and earth sword that came with the flaming sword were all unfinished. After all, they came out of the furnace at the same time. Qin Hao thanked the heavens and the earth, and thanked the ancestors of the crouching dragon and young phoenix. It would be intolerable if he did not accept it. "If that's the case, I'll take it." Qin Hao nodded. It turned out that his father-in-law had given him such a precious treasure at the crucial moment of the emperor's martial competition. Without hesitation, Qin Hao let go of the great void sword and recited the mantra of the inextinguishable samsara technique. Immediately, the great void sword was surrounded by a holy white smoke. A small purple incense burner slowly appeared in the white smoke. The body of the incense burner grew bigger and bigger. Qin Hao's body also surged with the powerful Red Lotus Overlord fire. At this moment, in the study of the Imperial Martial Hall, on the crystal screen, there was a flash of dazzling fire. The sparks exploded too suddenly. Young Phoenix felt pain in front of her eyes and screamed. Her connection with the five-element sword was immediately cut off. She covered her face with both hands. "What's going on?" Crouching Dragon said in a panic and looked at the crystal screen. When he looked again, the crystal screen was covered by an invisible force. It was as if there was a layer blocking it. He could not see clearly at all. It was too hazy inside. This force was the divine power produced by the resonance between the Great Void Cauldron and the inextinguishable samsara technique. But Crouching Dragon did not understand. He turned to look at Xiao Yi, thinking that it was Xiao Yi's doing. "Why are you looking at me?" Xiao Yi stared. He did not even use a bit of his vitality. "You guys insisted on helping me test my son-in-law. Now, there's a problem. Long, go lie down in the purple bamboo forest. I have a bad feeling." Clutching her face, young Phoenix squatted on the ground. Her eyes were filled with tears due to the Red Lotus tyrannical fire. Even her snot was coming out. Just a moment ago, he had lost his connection with the five-element sword. When he tried to communicate again, he was blocked by a mysterious and unfathomable force. That energy was too strong. Even Chick Fong, who was a half-step martial emperor, could not sense it with her consciousness. In other words, he had lost the ability to control the elemental sword. The five-element sword was too important. They had been forging it for 49 days, even though it was only 1 day short. However, the five flying swords were carved with an emperor-level inscription technique. In order to carve the five elemental inscriptions, fledgling Phoenix had exhausted half of her origin energy, and her spiritual force had been severely damaged. She could not afford to lose anything. "Don't worry, let me check it out first." Wulong calmly stroked his beard. To deal with Qin Hao, did he have to make a trip personally? He He was a peak blacksmith, so it was a little too degrading. As long as he spread out his powerful consciousness, a mere purple bamboo forest would be within his sight. As he spoke, Wulong closed his eyes. His spiritual force spread out wildly from the martial Emperor Hall, instantly arriving at the purple bamboo forest in the backyard. Not even mosquitoes or ants could escape his eyes. Strangely, he searched again and again, but he could not find any trace of Qin Hao. It was as if Qin Hao had vanished from the face of the earth. What the hell are you searching for? I've already checked. I can't find Qin Hao at all. I've also lost control of the 5 elements inscriptions. I told you to go. My old mother, my eyes. Young Phoenix covered her face and squatted on the ground. Tears kept flowing through her fingers. She could only blame herself for being too proficient in inscriptions and being too sensitive to fire. Earlier, she had been too close, and a strange fire had appeared in the crystal out of nowhere. Even through the screen, young Phoenix felt that she was about to be roasted blind. In fact, it wasn't just Wulong and young Phoenix who were spreading their consciousness. Xiao Yi, who was in the room, and the mysterious middle-aged man painting on the dragon desk were also spreading their consciousness at the same time. Xiao Yi and the middle-aged man's consciousness were far stronger than young Phoenix's. 2 white-gold, emperor-level consciousnesses swept out from the study room. Like a hurricane, they quickly arrived at the purple bamboo forest and searched around. The result was that they found nothing. Young Phoenix didn't lie. Qin Hao had indeed disappeared into thin air. This caused Xiao Yi and the middle-aged painter's expressions to be abnormally shocked. They were all genuine emperor-level powerhouses. Not to mention the purple bamboo forest that was close at hand. In the entire northern border, other than the residences of the other emperors, they could look anywhere they wanted. However, they couldn't find Qin Hao even after searching Daliao. Strange, it's really strange. The middle-aged man finally stopped what he was doing and repeatedly exclaimed in amazement. But Qin Hao didn't disappear for long. In fact, he didn't disappear at all. He was busy forging the unfinished 5 elements sword in the forest. Moreover, Qin Hao's forging efficiency was extremely high. With the support of the Red Lotus Fire, the 5-element sword was only 1 step away from being finished. It only took him less than half a quarter of an hour to completely forge the 5-element sword. Of course, he had already dripped his blood on it. At this time, hearing that young Phoenix wanted Wulong to go to the purple bamboo forest, Xiao Yi waved his hand, then pointed to the image in the crystal and said, "No need." Qin Hao came out. Looking in the direction Xiao Yi pointed, Wulong and young Phoenix both snorted. Blood oozed from the corners of their mouths, and they fainted on the ground. "Brother Xiao, you found an extraordinary son-in-law." The middle-aged man glanced at Wulong and young Phoenix on the ground. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly, as if he was scolding the 2 old men. Then he smiled at Xiao Yi. "Does this count as a blessing in disguise for Wulong and young Phoenix?" Xiao Yi spread his hands and shook his head helplessly. Qin Hao's performance had greatly exceeded Xiao Yi's expectations. Wulong and young Phoenix were full of confidence in the beginning. In the end, not only did they fail to stop Qin Hao, even the powerful divine soldier that took them 49 days, no, 48 days, had become Qin Hao's toy. Fortunately, you, the #1 formation emperor of Beijiang, are here. Xiao Yi looked at the middle-aged man who was painting. His eyes were filled with admiration, and his expression was especially confident. Someone who dared to play with ink and paper on Emperor Zhao's desk must have an extraordinary status. At the very least, he had to be on the same level as Xiao Yi to be qualified. The middle-aged man was none other than the face like cream's father that Qin Hao met in the wasteland. He was the president of the Formation Guild of Beijiang and was known as the Formation Emperor. Next, it was Formation Emperor Yan's test for Qin Hao. If Qin Hao could enter the Imperial Martial Hall in front of the Formation Emperor, Xiao Yi could not think of anyone else in the world who could stop the man that his daughter liked. You can't be so sure. There are talents in every generation, and heroes often come from the young. Maybe Qin Hao can really create a miracle. Emperor Yin smiled faintly. There was a sense of mystery in his smile. Chapter 1009. Superb acting skills in the purple bamboo forest. Qin how dispersed the inextinguishable heart sutra and put away the great void cauldron. A layer of mysterious power formed a hazy barrier that slowly disappeared from above his head, revealing his figure. Qin Hao's face was filled with satisfaction and joy. He used his mind to feel the 5 small swords floating in front of him. The 5 elemental swords had already shrunk to the size of a foot. Each of them emitted a unique attribute, and like 5 children, they wandered around Qin Hao without restraint. Who would have thought that not only were the 5 mid-tier exalted artifacts engraved with emperor-level inscriptions, but they could also be controlled with one's thoughts. During the refining process, Qin Hao discovered that they still had the potential to level up. They could be called perfect products and were simply too likable. Just now, when Qin Hao used the red lotus tyrannical fire to lure the flaming sword, it did not even last for a few breaths before it succumbed. Next, he used the flaming sword to collect the golden sword to collect the wood to collect the water, and so on. Once all of them were subdued and fused into the divine cauldron, the 5 divine soldier would complete the final step of tempering. Then, he would drip his blood on them to make them recognize him as their master. Right now, Qin Hao was their ancestor. They would stab whoever he told them to. What a rare treasure! Qin Hao could not help but stretch out his hand, feeling the unparalleled sharpness of the 5-element sword. In the past, he was still a little worried that if he encountered Zhou Wudao, even if he used all his trump cards, he would at most have a 60% chance of defeating the other party. Because Zhou Wudao could casually take out an awesome revered weapon like the Qingyuan demon subduing pestle, he must have a lot of trump cards. Now that he had the 5-element sword, his 60% chance of victory had increased to 90%. As for the last 10%, it was reserved for Zhou Wudao's surrender. 5 mid-tier venerable artifacts engraved with emperor-level inscriptions. If used properly, they are enough to kill a half-step origin emperor by surprise. Qin Hao raised his nose proudly. He injected his mind into the 5 flying swords, pinched his fingers together, and casually swung them in front of him. Swish! Swish! The 5 flying swords around him suddenly expanded. Powerful flames, golden light, and water burst out, making 5 sharp sounds of breaking through the air. They flew side by side, traversing more than 500 meters in one breath, piercing through thousands of bamboo poles. The bamboo poles were shattered into fine powder after being pierced through. It was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Yes, thank you, father-in-law Xiao, for giving me such a precious treasure. Hold you, I'll go, and thank you personally. With a wave of his hand, the 5 flying swords quickly turned back, turning into 5 rays of light and entering the spatial ring. Qin Hao put his hands behind his back and strode through the pockmarked purple bamboo forest. Fortunately, Qin Hao was also a refiner and an inscriptionist. He could use the 5-element sword freely. In Qin Hao's hands, the 5-element sword could exert 100% of its power. If he didn't thank his father-in-law, he would be letting his wife down. After passing through the purple bamboo forest, Qin Hao saw a corridor leading to the Imperial Martial Arts Palace. The corridor was not long, about 200 steps. Qin Hao walked for a very long time, but he still couldn't reach the end. Through his mind, he could feel that the corridor was very tall and spacious, because every 5 meters there would be a stone pillar with a simple aura. If he walked, he would meet one every 8 steps. The distance was very accurate. Why can't I get out? Qin Hao suddenly stopped, and his heart sank. At this time, if he couldn't feel that there was something wrong with the corridor, Dindi would have lived in vain. If he guessed correctly, someone had set up a formation here, and it was the strangest formation of all, an illusion formation. Qin Hao couldn't help but admire the person who set up the formation. The other party's formation skills were so strong that even a person's spiritual power could be trapped in it. Logically speaking, The illusion formation instilled images into the mind through the eyes to interfere with the martial artist's mind. However, Qin Hao was blind now. He couldn't see, but he was still trapped. It was enough to prove that the person who set up the formation was very powerful. The level was definitely not inferior to the refiners and inscriptionists who forged the five-element sword. Daliao is really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. There are so many experts. Qin Hao nodded. No wonder Xiao Yi used 10 years to recover all the territory from the useless and decadent crown prince. There were so many capable people under his command, and each of them was so powerful. Daliao's foundation was much stronger than Qin Hao had imagined. Thinking of this, Qin Hao couldn't help but feel gratified and happy for Xiao Han. But a mere illusion formation can't stop me. Any formation could be broken, and illusion formations were no exception. Once the eye of the formation was poked, the illusion would disappear automatically. However, Qin Hao couldn't see it. Damn it! After cursing, Qin Hao started walking again. This time, he walked very slowly and carefully. He released his powerful Emperor-level spiritual power and carefully searched the corridor for any trace of abnormality. Two scarlet eyes appeared in Qin Hao's eyes. Even though his vision hadn't fully recovered, he could only forcibly activate the red lotus flaming eyes. With the activation of the red lotus flaming eyes, Qin Hao could vaguely see some images. There was indeed a corridor in front of him. This was very draining for Qin Hao. His eyes were very uncomfortable, and he could only maintain his vision for a short time. He had to find the eye of the illusion formation in the limited time. In the Imperial Martial Palace, Qin Hao was trapped in the corridor again and again. He walked from the beginning to the end and back again. Xiao Yi knew that his son-in-law had fallen into the trap. Emperor Yin, who was standing beside him, didn't look too good. He had clearly made a mark, and the mark was so obvious. He had purposely shown it to Qin Hao so that Qin Hao could easily decipher it. However, in the image, Qin Hao was walking back and forth in the corridor with a confused look on his face. From time to time, he would squat down and knock on the stones under his feet, as if he was on an adventure. Emperor Yin began to doubt his daughter's overestimation of Qin Hao's talent. It shouldn't be like this. According to Xiao Shuang, Qin Hao is a genius in the formation orb. Why does he look like someone who doesn't know anything about formations? Emperor Yin frowned and was very disappointed. However, after thinking about it carefully, a look of realization dawned on his face. He chuckled to himself and said, Qin Hao must be faking it. He must have discovered my mark long ago and pretended to search for it. It was all a show for Emperor Xiao. If he had broken my illusion formation, Emperor Xiao would have thought that I was lying. Well, very good. His acting skills are superb. Even I was almost fooled by him. He is a talent worthy of a heavy responsibility. Emperor Yin gave Qin Hao a thumbs up in his mind. If Qin Hao knew about it, he would definitely say, acting my ass. I can't see anything. Brother Yin is indeed Brother Yin. No one in the northern borderline can compare to you in terms of formations. Qin Hao has been trapped in the formation for 2 hours. Xiao Yi pointed at the image and praised Emperor Yin. He thought that Emperor Yin was too good. One had to know that Qin Hao had only used the time it took to brew a cup of tea to pass through the small door guarded by Hu Qi. Deciphering the youngling dragon and Phoenix's elemental sword took quite a bit of time. On the other hand, Crouching Dragon and Young Phoenix had spent an even longer time forging the five-element swords. They had endured a total of 48 days. Their mental and physical strength had been exhausted, and in the end, they had ended up benefiting Qin Hao. Back to Emperor Yin. He casually pointed at the corridor and created a small illusion array. In the end, he casually pointed at Qin Hao, causing him to be unable to pull himself out. 2 hours later, Qin Hao was still dizzy and disoriented. Chapter 10:10. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, a number one genius of all ages. No. Brother Xiao, don't underestimate the power of my finger. It might look casual on the surface. In fact, This finger contains the essence of my life's study of formations. I poured hundreds of years of my cultivation into it. This finger is extremely powerful. It's completely reasonable that Qin Hao won't be able to come out in a short time. It's normal that he won't be able to come out in 5 days and 5 nights, 7 days and 7 nights, or even 3 to 5 years. Emperor Yin hurriedly put in a good word for Qin Hao, trying to buy as much time as possible for him to break the formation. Then Brother Yin is even more amazing. He couldn't help but give Emperor Yin a thumbs up. However, there's a trace of worry on his face. He pointed at the image and said, if Qin Hao really can't come out in 3 to 5 years, how will he participate in the Imperial Martial Competition? Although it was a test, he didn't want Qin Hao to be stuck in a dead end for the rest of his life. Wouldn't that be wasting his daughter's youth? Whether Qin Hao can come out or not is up to me. Emperor Yin waved his hand. He was dumbfounded. That was right. Emperor Yan's formation could be easily broken. However, Qin Hao would lose some of his dignity if he did that. Don't lose faith in Qin Hao. It's not difficult for him to break my illusion formation. Let Duan Ziju, the son of the battle monarch, come. If he can break it in 3 months, he'll be considered a top genius. If it's Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan, they can break it in 5 days and 5 nights. They'll be considered 2-realm geniuses. If it's Zhou Wudao, he can break it in 3 days. He'll be considered a 3-realm genius. Actually, the feeling of breaking the formation is similar to breaking through a bottleneck. It's a flash of insight. It depends on whose comprehension and observation skills are better. Emperor Yin explained. Yi nodded. He didn't know much about formations, but Yi understood what Emperor Yin was talking about. Yi shifted his gaze back to the screen. He could only pray that Qin Hao's inspiration would come sooner. In the corridor, Qin Hao searched with his mind 7 times, not letting go of any clues. He also did some in-depth research on some of the more prominent stones, but in the end, he found nothing. Even after activating his red lotus flaming eyes, he was still unable to locate the formation core. As time passed, he had already wasted 4 hours. In the Imperial Martial Arts Hall, Emperor Yin was so anxious that he kept stomping his feet. You brat, you're too engrossed in your acting. Because the red lotus fiery pupil had been open for too long, Qin Hao couldn't bear the pain in his eyes and finally extinguished the soul fire. As a result, breaking the formation was even more difficult. That can't be. Qin Hao's face scrunched up. He had checked everywhere. His powerful rank, 15 mentality, could even feel the movement of the gravel on the ground. However, the layout of the entire corridor was so tight that he couldn't find any trace of the formation core. The strangest thing was that there was a fist-sized hole at the bottom of one of the pillars in the corridor. Qin Hao didn't check that hole at all. It was too conspicuous. Even Qin Hao, who was blind, could find it. Thinking about how skillful the person who set up the formation around Emperor Xiao was, how could he place the formation core in such a conspicuous place? Unless the person who set up the formation was a big idiot. Forget it. I'd better check the conspicuous hole. It would be a waste of time to continue searching after searching every corner of the corridor. Qin Hao could only try his best and pray that the formation core of the illusory formation was hidden in the hole. In fact, he had already found the pillar with the hole when he first stepped into the corridor. It was the 5th pillar. According to the steps, it was the 40th step. Taking a deep breath, Qin Hao returned to the starting point of the corridor and counted in his mind. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, 8 steps, 9 steps, 10 steps, 11 steps. Here it is. Qin Hao squatted down and reached out to feel the pillar. Gradually, his hand reached toward the bottom of the pillar and pressed into the groove of the hole. Well, his calculation was very accurate. It was here. The moment his hand went into the hole, Qin Hao's face changed abruptly and was full of disbelief. The formation core was really here. Then, he felt a strange force coming from his palm. Before Qin Hao could crack the formation core automatically destroyed itself. Whoosh! Like a gust of wind, the illusory formation that shrouded the corridor disappeared. Damn, so easy. Qin Hao cursed and swore. He couldn't help but curse. He tried his best to release all his mentality and opened his red lotus fiery pupils. He checked again and again, and you put the formation core in a hole that even a blind person could find. The person who set up the formation was really something. But on second thought, maybe this was a real formation master. Grandmasters usually didn't play by the rules. Often, there was something real in what was fake, and there was something fake in what was real. They were confusing and unfathomable. He placed the formation core in such a conspicuous place. Even Qin Hao didn't dare to guess where it was. Perhaps everyone in the world had the same idea as Qin Hao. This is a top almighty. His attainments and formations are sky high. I really admire him. Qin Hao cupped his fists and bowed to the hole. He misunderstood Emperor Yan's good intentions. If Emperor Yan were here, he would definitely say, "Sky high my ass." If I didn't make such a big hole, how could you find it? At this moment, in the Imperial Martial Hall, he was thinking about Emperor Yan's words. Those who could break the formation in 3 to 5 years could be called peerless geniuses. Those who could break the formation in 3 months could be called two-realm geniuses. Those who could break the formation in 3 days could be called three-realm geniuses. Suddenly, a violent wave came from the crystal. Xiaoyi quickly looked up. He was shocked to see that Qin Hao had removed the illusion formation in the corridor. He estimated that it had only taken 4 hours. At this moment, Xiao Yi's heart was in turmoil. He couldn't calm down for a long time. "Oh, brother Xiao, you're so lucky to have found an invincible treasure. Qin Hao is a peerless genius." Emperor Yan watched Qin Hao's performance for 4 hours. It was so boring that he was about to fall asleep. Finally, Qin Hao broke the formation. At this moment, Emperor Yan pretended to be extremely excited. He looked as if he was about to kneel down before Qin Hao. He grabbed Xiao Yi's arms tightly and said incoherently, "Do you know what a peerless genius is? He's even more powerful than the geniuses that appear once in 1,000 years, once in 5,000 years, and once in 10,000 years." Qin Hao only used 4 hours to break the strongest illusion formation I've ever created. I can guarantee that in less than 50 years, his attainments in formations will surpass mine. He might even become a peak-level 9th stage Array Emperor. Brother Xiao, I'm so envious of you. With such a good son-in-law, you can conquer the world. Emperor Yan looked so excited that it didn't seem like he was acting at all. He was stunned by his words. Chapter 10:11. Zhou Wudao is trash. Isn't it a bit too exaggerated to surpass brother Yan in 50 years? He frowned. Qin Hao was only at the king stage. You're questioning me? Or are you mocking me? When Emperor Yan heard this, he was immediately displeased. He shook off Xiao Yi's arm and pointed at Qin Hao in the crystal image. I, Yin Bei, have been studying array formations for 500 years. I dare not claim to be a genius, but my potential is definitely top-notch. Compared to Qin Hao, my aptitude is as bad as horse dung on the roadside. You have obtained such a virtuous son-in-law, yet not only are you not grateful to the heavens, you are actually questioning me? No, brother Yin. That's not what I meant. He hurriedly apologized. Move aside. If you don't want Qin Hao, I want him. It just so happens that my daughter, Ru Shuang, has also reached the marriageable age. She and Qin Hao are a perfect match. I will teach him everything I know about formations. This way, I will have a successor. This is perfect. Emperor Yin pretended to run out of the study as if he was taking Qin Hao away. Seeing this, he hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. Great, you're trying to poach me. He was Emperor Zhao's son-in-law. How could he give him to someone else? However, Emperor Yin showed that he was determined to take Qin Hao away. For this reason, he didn't hesitate to fight with Xiao Yi. The two of them pushed each other and almost fought. At this time, Qin Hao passed through the corridor in the backyard and stood in front of the study. Brother Yin, don't be rash. Qin Hao is here. Go hide. Yi pointed to the dark room in the study. It would not be good if Qin Hao knew that he and others were plotting against him. Emperor Yin pretended to be flustered. He opened a secret door in the wall and jumped in. Before he left, he didn't forget to grab the unconscious Wulong and Young Feng. Xiao Yi's movements were not slow either. He put away the crystal and sat on the dragon throne. He straightened his posture and tried his best to put on a dignified face. He put on a dragon robe. Creak! The door was opened by Qin Hao. Qin Hao's expression was very unsightly. After entering the door, he didn't say a word and stood coldly in front of the dragon table. At the same time, he secretly spread out his consciousness and wandered around the room like a spider web, trying to find the aura of a suspicious person. In the end, he discovered that there were indeed 3 auras in the room other than Xiao Yi's. These 3 auras were especially strong. Instantly, a disdainful sneer appeared on the corners of Qin Hao's mouth. "You've come." After a long silence, Xiao Yi broke the silence. "Didn't you ask me to come?" Qin Hao asked. The corner of Xiao Yi's mouth twitched. He was a little speechless, and the atmosphere was a little awkward. It's really not easy to get into the imperial study of the Imperial Martial Palace. If you have any instructions, feel free to speak frankly. Qin Hao was a straightforward person. Whether it was a deal or not, he would give a straightforward answer. Did you take a liking to me? Should his daughter marry him or not? Xiao Yi opened his eyes wide and was a little confused. It was his first time to be a father-in-law, and he had no experience at all. However, in his impression, when a son-in-law of a common family came to visit for the first time, he shouldn't behave like Qin Hao. He was too straightforward. Before you came, I thought for a long time and indeed had a lot to say to you. But when you stepped into the Imperial Martial Palace and stood in front of me, I didn't know what to say. Xiao Yi spread out his hands to show that he was helpless. Originally, if Qin Hao couldn't pass the test, as a father-in-law, he would naturally seize the opportunity to teach his son-in-law a good lesson and then give him some guidance. This was called giving a carrot after a stick. He wanted his son-in-law to be in awe of him. In the end, Qin Hao passed through 3 stages in a row, using his actions to forcefully swallow back the diligent teachings that Xiao Yi had prepared. It was really too disrespectful. Since you don't have anything to say, I'm leaving. If he had known this would happen, he would have dragged Xiao Han over. Xiao Han's presence could liven up the atmosphere. Qin Hao only felt awkward now. He couldn't find a common topic with his father-in-law. "Oh, by the way, thank you for the 5 flying swords. They are very sharp." Qin Hao turned around and said as he walked to the door, "Oh, it's okay. If you like them, just take them." Xiao Yi waved his hand. The swords weren't his anyway, so he didn't feel bad about it. However, as Qin Hao stepped out of the door, Xiao Yi hurriedly called out, "Wait." Hearing this, Qin Hao quickly stopped, retracted his leg, and stood still. The long-awaited lecture from his father-in-law was finally coming. "Qin Hao, no matter how the Emperor Martial competition ends, after it ends, you must leave Beijiang immediately." Xiao Yi's expression was serious, and his tone was grave. Beijiang was not a peaceful place. Unrest with Beiyin and Beiki could erupt at any time. If Qin Hao stayed, the chaos would only get worse. Qin Hao was very clear about this. He nodded and said, "Okay, but I want to take Xiao Han with me." Qin Hao had sworn that he would not let Xiao Han leave him a second time. Since she was here, he had to take her with him. "I didn't agree to let Han marry you." Xiao Yi raised his eyebrows and smiled as he looked calmly at Qin Hao. "You mean, I must become the champion of the Emperor Martial competition?" Qin Hao thought that Xiao Yi would agree immediately. "Didn't I pass the test just now? Father-in-law should be very satisfied with me." "Fine, if you don't let her go, I will become the champion. Do you think you can take her just because you say so?" "You're looking down on Zhou Wudao and the others on the Emperor Martial ranking, aren't you?" Xiao Yi wrapped his fingers on the table. Chapter 10-12. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio Su's gift arrogant. Xiao Yi laughed and scolded. His voice rumbled out. "Even if you defeat Zhou Wudao, you still have the first place on the Imperial Martial roll. The cultivation of the first place is so strong that Qin Hao can't defeat him. Let's wait and see. Qin Hao replied in a fit of pique. His voice gradually faded away. This time, he left the palace through the front door of the Imperial Martial Hall. Had said that the first place on the Imperial Martial roll was very strong. Now, Xiao Yi had reminded him again. It seemed that this guy was not ordinary. However, as long as it was not Xiao Yi himself, Qin Hao was not afraid of him. Not bad. He is calm and neither servile nor overbearing. He is also very courageous in the face of an emperor-level expert. I didn't misjudge him. After Qin Hao left, Xiao Yi sat on the dragon throne and praised him. It was not the first time he talked to a junior. The warlord's son, Duan Ziju, had come to the Imperial Martial Hall many times in private. Every time, he was reserved like a coward. Emperor Xiao did not know what Duan Ziju was afraid of. There was also Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan. Xiao Yi had seen them before. However, although the crown prince of Northern Yin and the prince of Northern Qi were not as fearful as Duan Ziju, they were too cunning. Their flattery made Xiao Yi feel disgusted. Only Qin Hao was true to himself. Xiao Yi felt that when he talked to Qin Hao, he was like an ordinary person. At the same time, it was as if he and Qin Hao were old acquaintances. There was no grudge between them. Everything seemed so normal. This was the feeling that Xiao Yi was looking forward to. It was the feeling of being a family. Weren't you dissatisfied just now? Now that he is gone, you are praising him again. Yin Beibei pushed open the secret door and walked out. He silently broke out in cold sweat for Qin Hao. He was really afraid that Qin Hao would be like Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan, and also flatter Xiao Yi. I like this guy's temperament, but I didn't say I'd take him as my son-in-law. Xiao Yi raised his head slightly and looked at Emperor Yin. He was still being stubborn. Emperor Yin rolled his eyes at Xiao Yi. His palm flashed, and 2 diagrams appeared. They were the diagrams he had just drawn on the dragon table. He handed them to Xiao Yi and said, I have improved the defensive matrix of the border with Northern Yin and Northern Qi. Compared to the one I gave you 2 years ago, it is at least twice as strong. Xiao Yi's heart warmed as he accepted the gift. He wanted to express his gratitude, but when the words reached his mouth, he couldn't bring himself to say them. He could only sigh and say, having a confidant like brother, Yin, is better than having 1,000,000 soldiers. Cut the crap. I heard that brat Yilong Yuan gave you 500 million heavenly crystal ores. Give me 300 million and help me expand the Array Guild's headquarters. Yendi extended his hand to Xiao Yi. You better take the diagram back. Xiao Yi's face tightened as he shoved the diagram back into Emperor Yan's hands. Stingy. It's fine if you don't want to give it to me. Anyway, Yilong Yuan has a lot of it. I'll ask him for it. Emperor Yin curled his lips and laughed heartily. His figure faded and disappeared from the room. Xiao Yi shook his head and carefully put away the diagram left by Emperor Yin. Although he was younger than Emperor Yin, the two of them felt like old friends at first sight. They confided in each other and became close friends. Daliao had experienced 10 years of war and survived in the gap between Northern Yin and Northern Qi. It was all thanks to Emperor Yan's help in the dark. Xiao Yi had once invited Emperor Yin to move the headquarters of the Array Guild to Daliao, but Emperor Yin refused. According to Emperor Yin, he was more useful to Xiao Yi in the dark than in the open. After returning to Liangmin Tavern, Qin Hao was quite satisfied with this night's visit to the Imperial Palace. As for the setting red sun, he didn't know why it insisted on staying with Xiao Han. However, Qin Hao didn't think it was inappropriate for it to stay with Xiao Han, so he wasn't in a hurry to take it back. Secondly, in order to meet Xiao Yi, Qin Hao went through a small test. At the same time, he obtained 5 mid-tier honorable artifacts with emperor-level inscriptions. This would be of great help to Qin Hao in the Imperial Martial competition. As soon as he returned to Liangmin Tavern, Qin Hao immediately announced that he would go into seclusion to practice with the 5-element sword. He wanted to practice a set of sword techniques that matched the 5-element sword before the top 10 competition started. After all, there was still the mysterious number 1 person in the Imperial Martial competition above Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao was no longer a threat to Qin Hao. His new challenge was the #1 person on the Imperial Martial competition list. Qin Hao went into seclusion for 5 days. After the finals of the Imperial Martial competition, the top 10 competition would start in 7 days. The contestants had to be fully prepared for the top 10 competition. During this time, the children's group competition started first. This made Su Su very anxious. Qin Hao had promised him that when the children's group final started, he would give Su Su a big gift. However, Qin Hao was in seclusion. Su Su had used all his strength to defeat Su Hua. He needed to improve his strength and urgently needed Qin Hao's gift. Sir still hasn't come out? In front of Qin Hao's door, Su Su looked at Sayo timidly. Then, he secretly glanced at Yi Shuihan. On the day that Sir went into seclusion, there were 2 more terrifying door gods in front of his door. In response, Yi Shuihan waved his hand at him and sent Su Su away. Su Su pursed his lips and struggled for a long time. He wanted to shout at the door, but when he saw Yi Shuihan's body emitting a monstrous light, Su Su immediately swallowed his words. He could only wipe his tears and go downstairs dejectedly. Looks like I'm destined to be eliminated this time. Su Su sobbed. Kid. At this time, Sayo was shouted. He pointed at Su Su and said, "You're here to ask for a gift from my big brother, right? Go to the tavern's backyard and meet someone. That person will bring the gift to you." Chapter 10-13. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios' father's belongings. Not even a word of thanks. How rude. Hearing Su Su's anxious footsteps, Sayo grumbled unhappily. He was much smarter than Su Su back then. Looking at the closed door, Sayo and Yi Shuihan smiled at the same time. All of this was arranged by Qin Hao. Before he went into seclusion, he had already prepared the special gift for Su Su. He came to the backyard. There was a tall and burly man standing in the yard. The man was about 2 meters tall and had a strong body. He wore a simple set of clothes. The clothes were not dirty, but they were old and faded. There were many patches on them, proving that the man had been through a lot. "Hello, uncle. Did Sir ask you to find me?" Su Su blinked his bright eyes and asked the man excitedly. Oh no, I don't know who Sir is." The man nodded first, then quickly shook his head. Su Su was puzzled. "Then why are you standing here? Who are you looking for?" The man stammered and was a little dazed. He carefully recalled what Qin Hao told him. "Someone told me that the Su family of Yu Country Suzhou City is here. Little brother, do you know a person called Su Su?" "I am Su Su. Who are you?" Su Su became alert and subconsciously circulated his Yuan Qi. He did not know this man. "I am Big Head Hu. It's like this. 3 years ago, I met a hero called Su Qingming and we traveled together. The Su Qingming that the man mentioned was the Su family's patriarch, Su Su's father. The man said that Su Qingming had found a treasure and had gathered more than 10 martial artists to form a team to search for it. They found many good things, but the treasure had not been completely excavated. However, there were more and more obstacles, and the excavation became more and more difficult. Many people died, and some warriors chose to leave. The man was one of them because it was too dangerous. When the man left, Su Qingming gave him something and asked him to bring it to Su Su. As he spoke, the man took out a small red box and handed it to Su Su. "This is what leader Su Qingming asked me to pass to you. He is your father, right?" "Father." Su Su's eyes immediately teared up. Looking at the box in the man's hand, a few drops of tears flowed down his cheeks. He nodded. "Yes, Su Qingming is my father. Thank you." After that, Su Su took the box. "I've been entrusted with the task, and I'll do my best to fulfill it. Since I've delivered the goods, I'll take my leave now." The man tried his best to smile. He let out a sigh of relief. He felt that he had completed a historic mission and was in Mengyu country. He turned. He was. "Uncle, wait a minute. I haven't paid you yet," Su Su shouted. The man waved his hand. "No need, no need. Regiment commander, Su has already paid. Is my father, how is he? Where is he now? Uncle, can you tell me?" Su Su clenched the box in his hand and asked repeatedly. His father had disappeared for 3 years, and Susu had always been worried about him. Now that he finally got a trace of his father, how could he let it go? The man, the first prince had told him that he only needed to bring the item to Susu and then repeat the story that Qin Hao had described to Susu. But His Highness didn't tell the man where Su Qingming was. Also, should he answer Susu's question? The man was very anxious. He kept scratching his head as if he was in a difficult position. I know even if uncle doesn't tell me. My father is dead? Susu saw the man's expression and could guess Su Qingming's ending. The man's eyes widened. He was dumbfounded. He was a soldier of the Furious Bear Corps. He was good at fighting, but I really don't know how to lie. Sire, my condolences. After a long time, the man didn't know what to do. His Highness didn't teach him anything. He might as well follow Susu's wishes. At this moment, the man stretched out a big hand and pretended to stroke Susu's head sympathetically. Then, he sighed sadly and disappeared through the back door of the tavern. Once he took a step forward, the man clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were filled with tears, and he couldn't help but raise his head and let out a long howl. I have successfully completed the mission given by His Highness. This mission is so difficult. Between his words, the man's powerful aura surged. He turned into a gust of wind and disappeared from the tavern. In the courtyard, Susu sneered as if he had lost his soul. Tears kept flowing from the corners of his eyes into his mouth. He said bitterly, "You haven't returned for 3 years. In fact, I have already guessed that you might not be alive. It's okay. You've been gone for so long. I almost forgot about you. So I'm not sad at all." Susu wiped the tears from his face. He said he wasn't sad, but his whole body was cold. He had lost his only family in the world. Fortunately, before his father died, he still remembered him and asked someone to send him a relic. If Susu guessed correctly, the box should contain the treasure Su Qingming found in the treasure trove. Chapter 10:14. Juvenile Group Champion Qin Hao knew that the disappearance of the Su family's patriarch had always been a thorn in Susu's heart. Hence, he specially asked Siowa to find a simple and honest violent bear army soldier to work together to weave a white lie to fulfill Susu's dream. However, Big Head who Qi Xiaohua found was too stupid. He was as stupid as a pig and didn't know how to act according to the situation. He wasted Qin Hao's painstaking efforts and turned the beautiful dream he had made for Susu into a bolt from the blue, giving him a heavy blow. After Big Head who left, Susu turned his grief into strength and consumed the Saint Soul Pellet. In reality, the Saint Soul Pellet was refined by Qin Hao. Borrowing the Saint Soul Pellet's strong medicinal effect, Susu entered the Saint Realm from the Yuan Master Realm. In addition, when Qin Hao was in the Su family, he used the tranquil serene water to strengthen Su's martial body. After consuming the Saint's Soul Pellet, he directly entered the Mortal Saint's second layer. In the juvenile group, a Mortal Saint's second layer cultivation was definitely one of the top. In the past few days of the competition, Susu was unstoppable, defeating many strong opponents. Not to mention, he also had the Flying Snow Sword Art, a peak Earth rank martial art imparted to him by Qin Hao. Relying on the Flying Snow Sword Art, Susu forcefully pushed his way into the top 3 of the children's group, becoming the publicly acknowledged 3rd strongest. In an instant, Susu's name became famous and attracted the attention of the outside world. The Su family's grand elder was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He was so excited that he fell to the ground. And today was the day the juvenile group champion was decided. Today was the 6th day of Qin Hao's seclusion. On the 6th day, Qin Hao came out of seclusion. He successfully created a set of profound sword art that complemented the 5-element sword. He was going to use it tomorrow to blind Zhou Wudao's dog eyes. With nothing to do, Qin Hao, accompanied by Siowa and Yishui Han, went to watch the juvenile group champion battle to cheer for Susu. Sir, the champion's throne is just a step away from you. Do your best, and you must win it. The Su family is proud of you. You will definitely be the next patriarch. The first elder stood in the spectator area, raised his fist, and roared with all his might. Blue veins popped out on his face. The other Sioux family members were the same. Su was the Sioux family's hope. Su's heart's grand elder Su's heart was Su's heart. Big brother, this scene's Su's heart. Sayowa smiled as he looked around. The juvenile group arena was bustling with noise and excitement. It was a nostalgic scene. These kids aren't ordinary, especially the two youths standing beside Su. The one on the left is wearing a yellow robe. His cultivation is one level higher than Su's. He has reached Mortal Saint Stage 3. It's true that the younger generation excels the older generation. Yishuehan couldn't help but praise. Looking at his age, the youth who was one level higher than Su was around 15 years old. He had unlimited potential. He's still not Su's match. What worries me is the one on the left of the yellow-robed youth. Even I can't see through that person's chi. Qin Hao's face turned serious. With the flying snow sword art, Su wouldn't lose to the yellow-robed youth. But on the stage, there was a person whose chi was very deep. It was so deep that Qin Hao couldn't see through it. Everyone couldn't help but feel terrified. When Yishuehan heard this, he and Sayowa spread out their Paragon Realm intent. They quickly enveloped the person on the left of the yellow-robed youth. In the end, they couldn't see through that person's chi. Yishuehan's face immediately turned serious. Just like Qin Hao, he became cautious. Looking at where that person was standing, he should be the current number 1 in the juvenile group. He was a young contestant called Lu Chou. This Lu Chou was much older than Su. He was around 15 or 16 years old. But he had long snow-white hair that shouldn't belong to a young man. His eyes were abnormally cold. What was strange was that no one knew about his background. In the beginning, his results in the juvenile group were very average. Every time he advanced, he would just barely pass. But in the last 2 days, Lu Chou advanced bravely. He was like a hot knife through butter. He killed the number 1 and number 2 in the juvenile group. That's right, it was a bloody kill. His methods were abnormally vicious. Lu Chou's name swept through the juvenile group like a storm, shocking everyone. As for the champion, Lu Chou was the most popular candidate. Even Su couldn't be compared to him. It seemed that in everyone's eyes, Lu Chou becoming the champion was an indisputable fact. Big brother, this person gives me a strange feeling. For some reason, Sayowa felt that when he used his intent to check on Lu Chou seemed to have turned his head and smiled at them. Lu Chou didn't turn his head. It was too strange. I also have the same illusion. Yishuehan continued. Lu Chou's aura made him very uncomfortable. Yishuehan felt like he was a prey waiting to be caught, being targeted by the other party. Calm down and watch. Qin Hao replied indifferently. Qin Hao felt the same way Sayowa and Yishuehan felt. Moreover, Qin Hao was more sensitive than them. He could clearly feel that Lu Chou had used his intent to counterattack. And the one who counterattacked was Qin Hao himself. Lu Chou's intent was filled with hatred and a great deal of sarcasm. This made Qin Hao somewhat confused. He didn't know Lu Chou, so it was impossible for them to have a grudge. Chapter 10:15. Who told who to get out? The competition continued, and the eliminated contestants were eliminated. Only Su and the other 2 were left on the stage. The champion would be Su, the yellow-robed youth, and Lu Chou. At this moment, everyone was looking forward to it. The 3 of you can challenge anyone. Defeat 2 people and become the champion. As for the losers, they will fight another round. The winner will be the runner-up. The host didn't use any fancy words, nor did he use any impassioned speech. He simply stated the rules. Su and the others nodded at the same time. The yellow-robed youth took the lead and stood in the middle of the stage. He glanced at Su with disdain and smiled. Su, you don't deserve to be my opponent. I only need to move my little finger to send you back to your hometown. His meaning was obvious. He didn't put Su in his eyes. His target was Lu Chou. The yellow-robed youth also looked at Lu Chou with a provocative gaze and beckoned him with his finger. Susu immediately retreated to the side. It was better to let the yellow-robed youth and Lucho fight first. It was more beneficial for Susu. Northern Yin Empire's Prince Rong's youngest son, Moron Wenlong, right? Lucho stood up and said expressionlessly. Although he was expressionless, his tone was full of disdain. The yellow-robed youth, Moron Wenlong, raised his head proudly. The Yin Emperor was his uncle. He was Prince Rong's favorite youngest son. Among all the sons, he was the most talented one. His name, Moron Wenlong, was known by all the children's group. Hearing Lu Chao's words, Moron Wenlong sneered with a condescending attitude. You're afraid of my identity? You don't dare to fight? Don't worry, my great Yin advocates equality. There's no young prince on the stage. Only contestant Moron Wenlong. You can use all your skills and attack me without restraint. Of course, you can also choose to kneel down and admit defeat. Because Moron Wenlong swept his finger in front of his nose. You can't win against me. I only need one hand to defeat you. Ha ha! Moron Wenlong laughed with his head held high. He was extremely arrogant, but he felt that using one hand to defeat Lucho was already giving him enough face. Susu was not even qualified for him to make a move. Lucho laughed with ridicule towards this, and he pointed towards the bottom of the arena. It's impossible for me to admit defeat. At the moment I stepped foot onto the arena, I'd already disregarded life and death. So whose son you are, or whose little prince you are, it's no different than fart to me. But if I kill you, it will bring me a lot of trouble. Now, I'll give you a chance to live. Follow the direction I'm pointing and run for your life. Moron Wenlong secretly clenched his fists. He could not help but be enraged. Lucho was even more arrogant than him. Very well. As expected of the Moron royal family's genius, young Prince Wenlong is so young, but he has already transcended mortality and entered the divine realm. He even has an origin soul. This time, Lucho is going to lose. Chapter 10:16. Abstention. Not only was the audience shocked, Moron Wenlong had also surprised Sayogwa and Yishuehan. Susu clenched his fists as he felt a sense of danger from Moron Wenlong. However, Qinhao's consciousness was locked on a Lucho. He found that even if Moron Wenlong revealed his powerful source spirit, Lucho was not affected at all, as if victory was already in his grasp. You still have the face to pretend to be calm. Fine, I'll break you to pieces with a single move, and you can go find the King of Hell to calm down. Moron Wenlong did not want to waste any more time, so he directly used his source spirit's ultimate move. At this moment, he fused with his source spirit, and his body expanded. He turned into a half-beast, looking exceptionally tall and sturdy. His entire face turned into the shape of a lion. With a head of messy golden hair, he looked exceptionally fierce. He clenched his fists and took a deep breath. His belly swelled into a ball, and he suddenly charged at Lucho, roaring out a sound wave. This sound wave smashed forward. It was the Lion King's roar divine art. This sound wave was incomparably grand and swept out like a whirlwind. The audience close to the stage quickly covered their ears with their hands and screamed as if their lives depended on it. Blood flowed out of their ears. Susu on the stage could not control his legs as they flew far away. The actions of a child can't even withstand a single blow. Luchao's expression did not change as he stretched out his hand. When the sound wave surged forward, his hand weakly patted in front of him. Ha! The sound of glass breaking rang out. With this light pat, Moron Zijuan's strongest attack with his source spirit had disappeared without a trace. The entire scene returned to normal, as if the terrifying scene from before had never appeared. Put on. Moron Wenlong could no longer remain calm as he fell to the ground in fright. His face was filled with fear. How is this possible? At the same time, Susu was also shocked. This is the last sentence. Scram, I've already lost my patience with you. Lucho impatiently waved his hand at Moron Wenlong, as if he was sending away a clown. "You bastard! Don't worry, even if my source spirit can't hurt you, I still have a king weapon in my hand. This sharp divine whip was given to me by my father and is the highest grade weapon I can use right now." Muron Wenlong jumped up crazily, hurriedly pulling out a snake-patterned whip from his spatial ring, vainly attempting to struggle. Unfortunately, he had no chance to struggle. Lu Chao's face was filled with disgust as he threw out a heavy palm. Pa! This palm passed through the center of Murong Wenlong's whip, breaking it into two pieces. Then, it ruthlessly slammed into Murong Wenlong's face, knocking him off the stage. Puff! Murong Wenlong spat out a mouthful of blood and stood up. They're the top experts in the top 10. We're so lucky today. The appearance of Qin Hao and the others immediately became the focus of the children's competition. Many infatuated girls surrounded Yi Shuihan and asked for his autograph. When everyone's gazes shifted, Lu Chou naturally didn't stay idle. He also openly flashed a smile at Qin Hao. This smile was extremely cold, and in a trance, it seemed as if the temperature of the children's group arena had dropped. "Sura, listen to me. Forfeit immediately. You're far from being his match." Qin Hao surged some primordial qi, forming a whirlwind around him, blocking the admirers who were approaching him. He warned Su Su again. It was a very strict warning. Moreover, Qin Hao had not reached the revered level and could not teleport.